Oh, what's up, bro? My bad. Just resetting my settings. What up, Coots? What up, my boy? How you been? I didn't even know I was AFK. Well, I didn't know I was AFK. Just fixing yo. Yeah. Nice. What up, cuz? How you been? I had to switch over to multi-stream too, so I couldn't even read your messages. Your mic really low. Yo. Yo. Raise your phone audio. It sounds good on my end. I think you might have to raise your audio, son. Yo. Yo. I don't know what an S32U is. What up, though? What? What you been up to, bro? What's up with you? What you been up to? Dog walking, nice, bro. W, bro. When you get ripped, what do you mean? Oh, like jacked? Yeah, bro. Bro. That's what you should do, bro. That's what you should do. That's what the best way to do when you're younger, bro. The best way to grow yourself and everything, man. Oh, is it? Shit. HDMI unplugged. The hell? These dogs I get hired to do, they crazy, really crazy. What, some like big ass dogs? Some big ass dogs. Can't wait to pay, bro. You're bugging, son. You don't pay taxes, bro. You're nowhere near the age to pay taxes. You don't pay income tax. Further, call it was a great day. Nice, bro. Nice. Yeah, you're too young to be ever even touch taxes, bro. No one's ever gonna charge you taxes. I'm in and ad can't fee. Okay, bet. Back, yeah, saying you don't pay income tax, but you're way too young. Nobody's ever gonna make you pay income tax because the problem is, bro. Even if it's online, you don't have to file that. You're not your bro. You're literally 10 years old, bro. Your parents have to file for you. Your parents have to pay that for you. You don't. You're literally a minor, son. Trying to find a because if you do, you're just gonna harm yourself. Like legally, well, unless you're in the UK, it might be different. Legally, I'm never doing a Great Dane again. W. Yeah, but don't pay. I mean, I don't know, man. It's probably, it's illegal. I'm pretty sure, bro. That's illegal as hell. That's literally illegal. Looking that up right now. Yeah, you have to make like 13K exactly, bro. You have to make 13,000 pounds to even qualify to pay taxes, bro. So unless you're hitting that much, and even then you're, yeah. I mean, UK is kind of fucked, but you have to get to 13K for you to be paid taxes. Yeah, so that's pretty dumb, but it's you have to hit 13,000 pounds for it to be charged income tax for you. They actually don't care. No, that's impossible. It's 13,000 pounds in the UK, like the whole United Kingdom. You should double check, bro. Don't get scammed. I'm telling you. Don't get double check that so you don't get scammed, bro. Because you're gonna end up paying taxes for because you can't even pay taxes for something that's 1,000 pounds. Like the way taxes work, you're gonna lose more than you ever even made on that 1,000 pounds. Well, that doesn't make any sense.
Do not buy Madden 26.
Wait.
Alright, so in this video, I'm going to be talking about Kevin Hart, who is possibly the highest earning comedian over the past decade. But when you become that successful in the entertainment industry, especially in Hollywood, of course there are going to be a lot of people that think you sold out to get to the position you're in, or there's just something other than your talent and hard work that helped you get to the top. Because to have a career in Hollywood, it's more than just skill. You know, you can't really do things your own way. You can't have the highest standards. You kind of got to play the game, and if you don't want to, it could be over just like that, because there are thousands of people ready to take your spot. And this was actually described very well by Patrice O'Neal.
Dude,
Or just
Will Smith
kinda
has been famous
forever.
for 15 years.
Probably longer.
He does what he's supposed to do. And I'm not saying he, whatever, I'm just saying
Mm-hmm.
you just don't do 7 pounds
I'll
and stay on top.
let me play the other side of that, because I'm sure a couple people would say this.
Shit.
A few people would say it's because he's that talented.
Nobody's that fucking talented. Let me tell you something.
That's what I thought you would say. And honestly,
Let me tell you
I
something.
agree with you.
The game we're in is like jail. You gotta be. There's no rogue, lonely gunslinger guy in Hollywood. There's no I do it myself and nobody fucks with me.
Do it my way.
My way. It ain't none of that. You gotta be affiliated. Like if you go to prison, you can't go in there and go, hey, I'm just gonna read my gun books and I'm just gonna chill out. You gotta join something.
Think that
This
obviously.
business is the beast.
Yeah.
And it eats everybody and shits them out. But here's what's funny about the beast. It's a never-ending line of people who want to get in the mouth and get chewed up and shit out.
Why is that?
It's because when you get in the belly, you get $2 million a week. And when you get shit out, you're a pile back there, and you have the option to go get back in line and wait to go get back in the beast and get eaten and shit out.
Motherfucker is
And we line up.
hilarious. You are fucking hilarious
I
and
wanna-
profound.
I want to.
And I think once you make it to the belly, you have a little more room for error. But when you're getting started, when you're trying to get there, you can't screw up at all. You know, you have to take advantage of every opportunity. And if you're going to make it, you have to conform to Hollywood standards. And then to break through and become a superstar, people will speculate you eventually have to sell out in a way. And you basically can't be yourself anymore, because you have to give up control to a higher entity. You know, like what Dave Chappelle was worried about, and the reason he turned down the $50 million offer he got.
I wasn't walking away from the money.
Yeah.
I was walking away from the circumstances
Uh-huh.
that were coming with the newfound plateau.
Yeah.
It takes a while when you punch through to adjust to the atmosphere.
Mhm.
It was completely outside of my frame of reference. It's incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
And I felt like in a lot of instances, I was deliberately being put through stress because, you know, when you're a guy that generates money,
Yeah.
people have a vested
Before we
interest in
get to the
control.
dragonflies, however, we'll need to
I was
scatter the
doing
guards,
sketches
defeat some digger drones so we
that
have an
were
opening.
funny, but socially irresponsible.
Mm.
I felt like I was deliberately being encouraged, and I was overwhelmed. So it's like you're getting flooded with things, and you don't pay attention to things like your ethics, or when you get so overwhelmed. It's like you won the lottery.
Explain.
Let's say for your Hamlets, for instance. A lot of these people traditionally get paid on a percentage basis. The more you work, the more they make.
Yeah.
You make that real money, they lost their minds. I thought they were crazy.
Uh-huh.
You know, it was like, you got to do everything.
Yeah.
You know, and there's some quote that someone had told me. It says, success takes you where character cannot sustain you.
Wow.
I
That's
don't
a good quote.
I don't care who you think you are or how you think you do it. You cannot imagine what celebrities go through as far as how your integrity is, your self-image, and all these things.
Okay, this is a theory that I've always had, and I've discussed this with other people. The idea that if you don't know who you are when this big thing hits, when the big stuff comes, if you don't know who you are and can't stand in the center of yourself, then you end up confused and feeling thwarted and feeling diffused in many directions because everybody is pulling on you. Would you say that that was part of your issue? Trying to find the center for yourself?
Absolutely.
You've worked your whole life for it. You
Yeah.
wanted it. You've, struggled to get it. Sacrificed, rejected many times, told that things wouldn't work, and then all of a sudden, you're the genius, and we're going to give you $50 million. And that was too much for you to handle?
No. It's the way the people around you position themselves around you to get in your pockets and in your mind.
Yeah.
That is
Live right now.
infuriating.
Kicked in, clocked in.
Maybe one of the best examples of someone who managed to have extreme success without changing or compromising any of his beliefs, and he's still able to speak his mind without any restrictions. But Kevin Hart, on the other hand, he admits he's taken a different route, and he's put himself in a position where he can't do or say certain things.
But the
Yeah.
Dave has a level of freedom. Me and Chris Rock talk about it, man. You know,
No one's like him.
his level of freedom. I put myself in his place. You know, I got the corporate relationships and the CEO hat and the companies. So, you know, I can't do certain things because the consequences aren't just for me. It's for the people that are underneath this umbrella. If something were to happen, I have to be responsible. I have to understand that it's not just about me.
Right.
And I'm envious and jealous of Dave's ability to go and be free as a comic in the times where we desperately need to be.
Yes.
We desperately need to be, and Dave can be. Dave, in my opinion, you're the GOAT.
So since Kevin Hart kind of chose the opposite path of Dave Chappelle, some people accuse him of sacrificing his integrity for fame and money and success in Hollywood. And one of the key moments that people point to prove he sold out, which is going to sound
Bet.
to
1 second.
people, but to
No,
others,
water
it'll
cooler?
sound right on brand with
Oh
him.
no, I'm not joining the
But rumors
Discord.
and
No, I thought I wanted you to send the
that he
picture.
sold
I'm just
his
chilling on
thing
stream right now. No.
started
I don't feel like
when
joining the
he
call
chose-
keys
some
at the
people
moment.
think he was forced to wear a dress for an SNL sketch in 2013. And I think the theory is that this was some kind of initiation ritual for him to become
I was gonna say send a pic of the PS2, my boy.
American. Like this was
I don't know how you
way
even
to
found
get
one and how the fuck you
control
bought one.
over
That's
him
insane in
before
2025.
fame. And this was actually a pretty controversial moment for him, which is funny because I actually think this conspiracy theory was accidentally started by
£5,
Dave Chappelle
W.
in 2006 during that same interview with Oprah. he mentioned how he's noticed pretty much every famous black comedian has worn a dress for a role, and he was even asked to wear one at one point.
I'm a conspiracy theorist to a degree. Like when I connect dots that maybe shouldn't be connected, I don't know. But certain dots, like when I see that they put every black man in the movies in a dress at some point in their career, I'll be connecting them down like, wow, all these brothers gotta wear a dress. This happened to me. I'm doing a movie with Martin.
Yeah.
The movie's going good. So I walk in the trailer. I'm like, man, this must be the wrong trailer because there's a dress in here. They come in. The writer comes in. I think he's the writer. He's like, Dave, listen.
And it works. That's fire as hell. That's bad fire.
Sneaking out of jail, so he disguises you as a prostitute. And he put this dress on, and what? This prostitute? Nah, I'm not doing that. I don't feel comfortable with that. That should have been in the discussion. What? You don't feel comfortable with it? I mean, it's a hilarious bit. All the greats have done it. So, well, if all the greats have done it, it's kind of hacky, right? You're right. So why don't we just not do it? Because I don't feel comfortable wearing a dress. Oh, come on, Dave. Listen, we got it all set up. We're supposed to shoot. Every minute you waste costs this much money. You know, the pressure comes in. He said, I'm not wearing no dress, man. I'm funnier than a dress. Just give me something funny to say. I don't need to wear no dress to be funny. What am I, Milton Berle? You know, we're going like this. And then finally he's like, and he leaves. And then like the director comes, Dave, it really would be great if you wear the dress. What is wrong? What is this, Brokeback Mountain in here? So then, wear the dress. I don't want to wear the dress. I want to wear this dress. You know what I mean? Oh, gosh, this guy's so difficult. They leave. Now the producers comes, come on, David, would be so great. I mean, and then I started thinking about it. All the comics that I've seen, man, you know, strong brothers, why they putting us in these dresses? But the minute it was clear, I was adamant, I'm not wearing a dress. I'm not wearing the dress. All right, fine. Think of something else. That comes back 10 minutes later. The whole new scene. Hot damn, how did you write the scene so fast? You know, it's like, so you gotta take a stand.
So that was in 2006, but then in 2012, when Kevin's career was really starting to take off, during an interview, they asked him about this, if he's ever run into this problem, and he said no and just kind of laughed at it.
Bet, my boy, go get the game.
If he would do it or not. It sounded like he probably wouldn't, but he didn't give a direct answer.
Great comedian said that, you know, in the industry, they tried to make him wear a dress. Have you ever ran into that with scripts, and is that something that, you know, you wouldn't do, you know, for?
I definitely haven't ran into to put on the dress. I mean, you know, you have to have boundaries. You have to have limits that you refuse to cross. You know, for me, I know what they are. They've yet to been challenged, so you know, I don't have to speak on them. I was asked to dribble a basketball on a talk show this morning.
You look
said
good
no to
doing
that.
it.
Not that was a dress, but I was like, no, I'm gonna look stupid. You know, at the end of the day, you got to know that you're a brand. I'm a brand. You need to protect your brand at all times. When things happen that can possibly affect your brand, your brand can be diminished, and you don't want that to happen. So, you know, protecting my brand is definitely a priority.
So then just a year or so after this was his first SNL appearance, and he decided to wear a dress, or maybe he was forced to wear a dress, and people felt like this was a sellout move, like he's basically giving up control and becoming a puppet for Hollywood, because just a year ago, you know, it sounded like he wasn't down with it. So some of his fans were really disappointed in him, and he put out this tweet addressing it. He said, I wore a dress on SNL because I thought it was funny. I made that decision. Nobody made it for me. I'm my own boss. But that didn't really help much, and still the conspiracy theories were starting to go around. You know, most of the comments on the SNL video are talking about how he sold out and joined the Illuminati and all that kind of stuff, which I think does make an interesting theory, and it's weird.
I actually do believe it, I'm not gonna lie.
We're setting up for this moment, you know, like the fact that he was asked about it less than a year before his SNL appearance, and then also the fact that he broke through right after this. Like in 2014 is when he became the leading actor in blockbuster movies, and he basically got as famous as you could get. But overall, if I had to guess if the whole dress theory is true, I'd say probably not. I mean, it sounds pretty ridiculous. And I'm not just saying that because the Illuminati got to me in the middle of this video. Like, after I explain why I think it isn't true, I'll talk about how maybe there is a hint of truth to it, and if it is true, what I think might possibly be going on here. But the reason why I think there's probably nothing to this theory is because this is acting we're talking about. I mean, I'd guess pretty much every actor that's tried to have a career has been offered a role where he has to wear a dress or wear something weird that he's not comfortable with, especially in comedy, and plenty of unsuccessful actors and comedians have worn dresses before, and it's got them nowhere. And people use Tyler Perry as an example of a black.
That's not the point, bro. People are too black and white. I'm about to pass out. All right, my brother. Good seeing you. Good coming in the stream. I hope you're doing well, bro. Keep grinding for that bread, baby. I wish you the best, my man. I wish you the best, cuz. Love you, brother.
That wears a dress, and he's done that for probably over 10 movies at this point. So I think he probably just uses it as a way to get a laugh, you know, just dressing up, like cross-dressing. People just find that funny, and it's obviously worked out very well for him. And like I said, it's not like only African-American actors are doing this. You know, if it were just them, then I'd be like, all right, there's something going on here. But plenty of white actors have done it as well. But don't get me wrong, you know, being told to put on a dress can obviously be emasculating. So I understand why people wouldn't want to do it. You know, Dave Chappelle, I respect the fact that he put his foot down and is like, no, I'm not doing it. I don't care if this hurts my reputation or whatever. That's not something I'm interested in.
Yeah, bro.
But unfortunately, with the way acting works, if you want to have a successful career in it, you're probably going to have to be pretty open-minded, and you're going to have to do some things that are out of your comfort zone, which I guess you don't really have to do. But if you're an actor trying to make it, you're usually expendable, and if you don't want to do something, there's somebody waiting to take your spot, which Kevin Hart definitely understood. You know, I'm sure he took advantage of every opportunity he had. And even if this whole dress thing is true, like even if this is a litmus test to see if you can become a big celebrity or whatever, it really doesn't seem that bad compared to what some actors.
That's still fucking terrible.
To make it in Hollywood, you know, it could be a lot worse. Like I think wearing a dress is getting off easy, and wearing a dress for $500 million seems like it's worth it. And I think
no, bro.
They
See?
can say whatever they want, but I think they'd probably take that deal.
Nah, this guy's a dumbass. Thank you for the follow, Latchy19 or Latchy9999. Whoa, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah, that guy's a fucking idiot, man. Art, what's up? What's up? How you doing today? How you doing today? How are you doing today? Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the stream.
All right, so in this video,
just grinding, watching conspiracies in the background. Grinding some wizard.
And more specifically, this sketch they did about Joe Rogan, and one of the Weekend Update guys, Michael Che, who is also a head writer for the show, got offended by what Tim had to say, and he vented his frustration on Instagram, and then him and Tim started going at it. So this was around 2 years ago, and I think even before this, Tim had already been very
doing great. Thanks. What about you? I'm vibing, man. I'm vibing. Absolutely loving it. Just enjoying some videos in the background. Just chilling today. Grinding some main quests for my whiz.
So it's like the most cliche Joe Rogan material you could think of. Like even for SNL standards, this was pretty bad.
SNL's fall off so much. So much.
Maybe they thought, you know, we're going to do a sketch about Joe Rogan, but we're not even going to give him the respect of doing a funny sketch about him and doing a good impersonation. Like that's how little we care about him.
I used to host Fear Factor, and now doctors fear me.
Can you help me, Joe?
Oh, sure thing, Big Bird. You see, I took Carlos Mencia down. I could take COVID. Here's some zinc, and ayahuasca, and some horse medicine. I'm a human, and I took horse medicine.
You are not a master.
And I'm speaking of things that are horse. Today's two sponsors are the letters S and D, as in I can S my own D.
So hopefully they're just
what
to make a terrible sketch and piss off Joe Rogan fans or something. Like that's the only explanation.
Doesn't even make any sense.
You know, because they also did.
You play Wizard 101 yourself, or what do you get into endeavor wise in the gaming realm?
Bad this is, and it kind of went viral because of how bad it is, especially when Tim Dillon quote tweeted it and said there are 100 ways to do this sketch and have it be funny. The show's now just lazy, mediocre hacks, and that tweet has 43,000 likes. So it got
Holy
a lot of
crap.
attention, and Tim continued on and said, people saying SNL hasn't been funny since the 70s are wrong. Farley Rock.
Getting through Polaris. Oh shoot, nice. W. We got another wizard in the chat, man. The wizard in the chat. Wizard in the chat. How long you been playing for? You an OG, or you like multiple wizards? How long you been casting some spells, man? It's 2010. I love it. You know, honestly, every time I stream, majority of people that do come in the chat like that are brand new are usually OG players. I'm a 2011, 12 player. I did play in 2010, but I don't remember that account. And I did it like up to Kraken Triton Way back then, when that was like the major thing. Everybody was like hanging out at Kraken when that thing was a boss. Love it, man. The game's honestly improved a lot. I just think they've slightly nerfed a couple of battles and fights, like debuffs and shit like that. Other than that, I honestly still love it, bro. I'm not gonna lie. It's a very quality game for just a membership-based MMO. Yeah, it changed a lot, but I love it. No, a lot of it was sort of good. Yeah, I agree. I love it so. But I just think they did nerf a couple of harder things. Like a free used to be a -90, it's a -45. Some of the Aztec bosses, like in the final bosses, their debuffs aren't the same. I was gonna make a YouTube video on it in general because I feel like it's like, oh my god, I get it. Maybe it was like way just different player base, maybe ease of getting people into the game now, but I don't think you should touch. I don't think anything should get. Damn, I forgot. I don't think any game. Yeah, they nerfed the health of so many bosses in Azteca. Yeah, that's why I'm like, damn, man. I get it, but like, you shouldn't touch. I don't think you should touch any worlds that are post Dragonspire or spells post Dragonspire, bro. 'Cause by the time you get through Dragonspire, yeah, like you've already beat the main game. Like you're in endgame basically after that. Like level base, yeah, you're basically an endgame after that. So I don't think you should touch anything post unless it was broken. But obviously they're trying to come back to that mindset with the challenge mode bosses. Yeah, exactly. What bothered me is the Crocotopia visual update. Yeah, bro. I don't know. I feel like the player ease and stuff like that. But I feel like you should ask. Like it's gonna do -45 here. Like back in the day, I would have had to really have tried my hardest to get that off. I shouldn't honestly just counter it with a blade. Damn, my contacts got I haven't really looked at the visual updates so much myself. I'm probably going to mostly complain about that when I go on my next wizard. But what's wrong with it? What did you find messed up with it? What? As an old player, I grew up on the old Croc. Yeah. See, that I agree with. I think there should be like skin packs. Honestly, if they were smart, KingsIsle was really smart. I'm gonna give you guys a tip. Listen, I'm gonna give KingsIsle developers a great tip. This is how you're gonna make a lot of money. You go into the crown shop. You even make a new category. You add it right here at the gameplay. You add something that is a skin category, and it has OG skins. So it would be a gameplay skin that you can reskin your whole game to how it looked back in the day for the OG feel, the nostalgic feel. Kings Alpha, all that, you'll make literally boatloads of money. All right, I'm clipping that and I'm tagging that. I just thought of that. That's honestly, I think that's a great idea, and I agree with you. The charm of the old school Wiz is what's missing. I'm not gonna lie, a little bit, not in the newer worlds, but that re-leveling experience. I want that old school charm. It'll make it a lot easier. Mushu, Marley Bone. I'm not gonna lie, fucking they redid, man. Like damn, man.
I'm not gonna say nothing to Tim that I wouldn't tell him in person. He's a sweet guy. Ask anybody that knows him. And also, I think Michael's saying Tim's a nice guy and he's very complimentary. And with that previous post, him saying that people don't understand who Tim is. I think he might be trying to imply that Tim kind of plays a character on his podcast.
Even the old Wiz models, like, yeah, man, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I like how colorful and how, like, you know, good it looks right now. Let me change my mount. I like it. I'm not gonna lie, I don't dislike it. But the problem is, I miss the old school because, like, you should be able to switch between both. There's sometimes I would probably enjoy Chrysalis 10 out of 10 times in this new scroll, like, version of how it looks compared to maybe other worlds. You know what I mean? They are doing a lot of community stuff. If they added that, it would be. And I get it because now consoles getting. I forgot the console. Yeah. So I don't know, man. You should be able to have old school player for the old school player base, man.
We're speculating that Michael Che actually did this for attention because he had a special coming out within the next few days. Like Andrew Schultz, he talked about on his podcast, and he's like, Michael's a smart guy. I don't think this got them at all, and I think he just realized this was a good way to promote his special.
I think this is Che promoting a special.
You know what? That's a good point.
Chance.
Hold on, let me buy Crown too. I need XP boost.
Yeah,
Watch this for a sec.
Special also comes out when? Tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm playing on classic mode. Wait, what do you mean? There's a classic mode? Let me buy crowns really quick because I need to buy XP boost. There's a classic mode. What in the game?
Right.
It's not like throwing a billboard up.
How do I do that?
Yeah. You got to drum up interest. It's pretty convenient that a day before the special comes out or 2 days before the special comes out, there's a beef with one of the biggest comedic media persons.
Yeah, in the settings window. Okay, let me check it right after this. Hold up.
Right.
I texted Dylan. I was like, yo, you gave him every opportunity.
Yeah.
Because everybody's going to go to his Instagram to look at what the beef is about. And I promise you, there's probably just one picture saying my special comes out the 16th.
Yeah.
Like, I bet, I didn't see what his thing looked like. I guarantee.
That is exactly what it is.
Okay, of course. Bro.
Type it in my master password 1 second.
But part of me thought, like, he did that shit on purpose.
Here's what's interesting.
Write a shitty Joe sketch, right? You're going to have all the people who fuck with and defend Joe shit on that. The whole internet's going to start talking. They don't have Trump to criticize anymore, right? So you can't go after Trump. You need the new version of that. You need the new divisive guy. The new divisive guy.
Trump's a fucking idiot, too.
Do it is Joe. You make the show about Joe, and then you make it, if he's a true mastermind,
right?
You make it criticizable.
Yeah, unfair.
You make it unfair.
If it's a super funny, pointed like parody, then everyone goes, "Oh yeah, that was funny."
If it's hilarious, you got to give it up. It doesn't make any news. If it's not, if it's straight, kind of hacky,
right?
Like, trust me, if Che's on stage, that's not the joke he's making about horse dewormer.
Yeah, so promoting a special probably had something to do with it. But if that's the case, you know, you should have done a better job of going after Tim instead of just calling him a media personality and a nice guy. You should have just said that Tim is trying to defend his meal ticket, Joe Rogan, and he's trying to suck up to his fans to get attention for shitting on SNL. And I know Tim could have just said, well, you're doing the same thing, you know, defending where you work. But still, even with what Mike actually said,
why can't my password reset, bro?
Calling Tim Dillon a media personality while you're known for being the Weekend Update guy at SNL probably isn't the best insult. And also, like Schultz said, I don't think Che was actually proud of that sketch. You know, I don't think he was responding to defend it. I think he's more just in shock of the whole situation, and maybe he's using it to promote his special. Like, also, Tim Dillon was talking about this afterwards, and he said he actually likes Michael Che and never had a problem with him and enjoys some of his work.
What's funny about him is I like him.
Yeah, me too.
Matt.
Che's one of the only famous people in the world who will still come and do shows like Legion of Skanks. I think Che's a good dude.
I agree with him on a lot of things, right? Like, I agree with a lot of what he says. What I think happened was he that got under his skin. What I said.
Yeah, so I think with Che's response, he was definitely more just frustrated with his own situation, I'd imagine. Like, also, 3 or 4 months before this happened, he kind of got canceled a little bit, and he's probably in some trouble with SNL because he posted a joke about Simone Biles, and it's almost like he was asking for trouble. You know, maybe he kind of wanted to get fired by SNL in a way, because he clearly doesn't enjoy it that much anymore. He's like barely hanging on. Like, he was on the Stern Show talking about working for SNL, and Howard brought up how it'd probably be better for him, or you'd be able to make more money.
All right,
if he
1
focused
second. I
on
think I'll be
comedy and
good.
didn't do the show anymore. And Michael Che definitely agrees, but then it sounds like he's trying to convince himself that there's still something about working for SNL that he enjoys. Which, you know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he does really like working for the show still, even though I don't think he'd be talking about leaving every season. But to me, it sounds like he's still holding out hope that the show turns around eventually.
And also, I think even financially, you could probably make more money on the road doing comedy. Honestly, Saturday Night Live is not infamously known for paying people well.
No, it's not. But my fantasy is to work the cellar every day. So, like, to me, you don't really think about the money. You think more so about that weapon of being on live television, appointment television, like kind of the last place where something exciting can happen. Even if it doesn't, the possibility is there. You know, it's NASCAR. You know, it's something crazy can happen. It's a championship fight. So I think that's still intoxicating. I think that's why people always come back. But, you know, after a while, you just feel like, I don't even know if I have anything to offer anymore. You know, you get a little bit down on yourself and you just want to kind of do something different just to feel like you're a stronger artist.
Yeah, so it sounds like he's always going back and forth whether or not he should leave. So that's why I think that Simone Biles joke that he put out is him kind of almost asking to get fired, but he ended up just saying his account was hacked and backtracking. So once again, he has trouble committing to something and he caves in to SNL. You know, I'm sure they told him to say that his account was hacked. But if I were him, you know, I would have just said, no, I'm going to stick to it. And if you fire me over a joke, then I'm just going to go on Joe Rogan next week and I'll be fine.
If I get fired here, whatever, I'll just go do Joe Rogan next week and I'll be fine.
So I think just like with Shane Gillis, you know, him getting fired from SNL was probably one of the best things that could have happened to him. I think Michael Che getting fired probably would only help at this point. You know, it's a lot of publicity, and then he can go
All
on
right,
Joe Rogan
crowns have been
about how he was canceled,
purchased.
making a
Let's
joke.
log
So I
back
think
in.
Michael Che definitely thinks about going that route and is kind of frustrated with his current situation. And that's what led to him freaking out about Tim Dillon because, you know, Tim's career...
And let me check the settings window. It should be fun. Comics Explained actually did a review on that. Toki has AIDS. Oh my god, what? No way I just ran through the middle. And... What? Every time I don't want to get into a battle, I get into a battle.
Alright, so in this video, I'm going to be talking about Joe Rogan and his relationship with Howard Stern and his time on the Howard Stern Stern Show because I'm sure most people are aware.
Oh, I do have
that
classic
Howard
mode on.
isn't the biggest fan of Joe because it seems like the only time he's
I'm just
made
an idiot.
headlines in the past few years is when he criticizes Joe and his podcast and his political takes and his takes on coronavirus and all that kind of stuff. But unless you really know your Joe Rogan or Howard Stern lore, you're probably not aware that Joe Rogan and Howard have had a pretty tumultuous relationship for almost 20 years now, and that's what we're going to be checking out today because I thought it was pretty interesting looking back on it, knowing what Joe Rogan has become, like the top podcaster of all time, and knowing that Howard Stern is probably the top broadcaster of all time. And these two were each a big fan of each other, and Joe was a regular guest on the Stern Show in the early 2000s when it was a big deal to go on there. Like going on there back then was probably like going on the Joe Rogan Experience today, so it was a pretty big deal for Joe to be going on there consistently. And it seemed like he was a good fit on the show. People enjoyed him. It seemed like Howard enjoyed him. But that didn't last very long, and things soon took a turn. So before I really get into it here, I just want to give this Reddit user...
You gonna farm Darkmoor? Yep. Yeah. I think one of my... No, it's not this person, but one of my mods, Chaotic, usually does a lot of runs with me and stuff. Yeah, I was gonna end up farming Darkmoor at 100, and then when I think they get on, but I'm probably gonna do a run myself as well.
Which I believe was in 2000, and that's right after News Radio ended, and it's a year before Fear Factor started. And what really got Howard's attention was this sketch that Joe and Brian Callen did.
What? Fuck that bitch. She said that? Man, fuck her. You got a great ass. You really think so? Yeah, man. Don't fucking listen to her. Turn around. Let me see your ass. Man, that's a great ass. Yeah? Yeah. Brown and muscular. Let me see.
Why are people posting that? Bullshit.
So, what do you think? Mikey, that is a great ass. I wouldn't lie to you. Look at yourself. You're tripping over yourself here. Standing here with your pants down by your ankles like a fucking moron.
I don't know what the fuck I'm watching.
What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and we are here with Absolute Batman in DC's new Absolute Universe, which is just DC's version of the Ultimate Universe in Marvel Comics. But Scott Snyder killed this story. It's amazing. So what this does is this opens up with Gotham City. And initially...
Soon, all you burrow lovers will suffer the sting of the Shadow Queen.
Superman has had a lot of iconic moments.
Took me 3 days last week to get the gear. 3 days? Wow. Wait, did they nerf gear drops? But they made it harder to get gear, but made the bosses easier.
Conversation. And to provide some context here,
I know what I want to watch in the background, like the vibe out. I don't really listen to music as much. I like.
Killed the family cat. Not intentionally. The cat was being carried away by a hawk, and his emotions got the better of him. Because his powers were developing, he fired off his heat vision at the bird and incinerated both the hawk and the cat. And so with Goldie gone, he actually kind of kept it to himself.
That's insane. Why? Okay, that's actually not a bad thing. At least they made like gear set bosses hard, like the same. That's not bad. Actually, I won't complain then. Doctor Doom kills the Marvel Universe.
In the story, and it's amazing. Okay, so check this out. So this initially picks up with something called the Antlion.
You guys watch comics? I'm a nerd in general, man.
Being created on the dark side of the moon. It's more of a controlled black hole. It's basically a minor singularity.
I'm not a huge comic person, but because the movies are coming back to comic accuracy lore, like DC, Marvel, everybody, I've got to come back into like actually learning more about the lore like that.
All the different forms of energy that are used, the big question that people find themselves asking is, what do we do with all this waste, right? This energy waste that we end up creating. Is it one of these things where we're going to just kind of keep on doing what we're doing, which is driving to the side of a hill, dumping our trash in the ground, and then covering it up? Or are we going to come up with something that's a little more elegant and more befitting of our technological advancement? And so that's the idea behind this black hole, is to literally create a place whereby trash can be dumped essentially for infinity, right? Because
no, I don't think I kill.
On the atomic level, and it
I did not mean to click that.
But I mean, it would take an astronomically long amount of time in order for that to happen.
Oh, I love anime. I'm not a manga guy. The problem is with manga is it shows me what I don't get virtually, like animation wise. Like the Dragon Ball manga, yeah, like Maro and all this shit is awesome, but like I don't get to see that for like 10 years. You know what I mean? That's a little crazy. And yeah, I like series too. I like Daredevil, Punisher. Good hit, honestly. I didn't think I was gonna get that. Punisher, Daredevil, stuff like that are really good. But some of the movies, man, nowadays I agree the series are better. Some of the movies are insane. And manga is the wave. What's manhwa? What's that? What's that? Yeah, name your top 5 animes, man.
And it has to be a failure because you weren't involved. Now here's the thing, right? Anybody who knows anything about Doctor Doom in Marvel Comics knows that there are some things you just don't say, right? Like pick your battles wisely. This is one of those because
Korean manga is so nice.
Doctor Doom just kind of leaves in a huff.
The Korean anime is better, in your opinion, or for certain aspects.
Right? Like I want my hands on that guy.
Like I've watched Parasite and other like indie animes in a way and stuff like that. They've been really good. I don't know if they've been Korean animes, but
is that while that's taking place, you end up having Doctor Doom in his study, and while he's there, he's suddenly met by the arrival of Kang the Conqueror. Now, when it comes to Kang and Doctor Doom, this is one of those things where it's kind of you stay away, I stay away, right? In the sense that because these two guys are kind of distant relations to a degree, Kang doesn't really do a whole lot in terms of intentionally going after Victor Von Doom. The reason for that is that in Marvel Comics, it's never been fully established if Kang the Conqueror is the descendant of Reed Richards or the descendant of Victor Von Doom. But the risk here, and even Kang himself doesn't...
The plot is better than Japanese manga? Okay. I might have to get into it because that is a big main factor. Stories have been so bad, man. The stories are not the same as they used to be.
Although the two have fought in the past. And the fights between Doctor Doom and Kang are usually amazing. Like, they're some of the coolest fights you're ever going to see. Mostly because it's Kang the Conqueror brandishing all his technology and time travel escapades. And it's Doctor Doom with just, like, the best one-liners ever in the history of comic books. It's no, I will say Apocalypse.
Yeah, manga. I've watched the anime up so far. Obviously with, like, the, you know, he kills the Ant, Baru, and all that. Like, I've seen the anime. The manga-wise, I've caught up, like, with it. Or not manga-wise, anime-wise, I've caught up with, like, how I am with the manga. A similar path. So I got to get into more in-depth with it. You'll like it? Definitely bet. Wait, am I supposed to go?
Being here is one of those things where it's a little mysterious. We don't really know why he's here in the first place. The nature of the conversation is really more just kind of banter back and forth between the two. And that's
my contacts are pissing me off, but I really do need them.
What Dr. Doom ends up doing is as he prepares for bed, then he actually ends up having this vision of a woman that we haven't discovered yet. And she and Dr. Doom have a family, right? Like they have a whole full-on family. And so Dr. Doom really kind of going back to
watch Iron Fist. Yeah, I did. You talking about the original one from Netflix? Only like 3 episodes, bro. Because Luke Cage and Daredevil were just way better. They just did him too dirty, man. It was a good show. I love Iron Fist as a character too. They just did him dirty, man.
Here's the thing to understand: if a black hole opened on the moon, we would die so fast we wouldn't even be able to understand what had happened, right? Like literally it would just probably be a flash of light and like that's it. That's all we would see. But the thing about this is that once Dr. Doom, of course, the next morning, he's basically told, hey, we have Steve, that he ends up going to find where Steve is basically just kind of strung up. And he's like,
yeah, they did him so dirty. Yeah, man. I'm not gonna let that show. They did my boy so grimy, bro.
Doom is kind of meditating and focusing on this vision that he received. Suddenly, the nuclear arms of Latveria fire off, right? They literally just start going off. Like all these nuclear weapons of Latveria shoot off. They head toward the Antlion Collider and basically destroy the whole.
It's so sad what they did to it. At least they're trying to fix it now. Fantastic Four was lit. Superman was lit. Which Flash before movie Flash? Series, man. Ezra Miller is just a fucking maniac. The show, every DC movie is fucking ass except for the Batman and Superman that just happened. Blue Beetle wasn't bad and shit, but like, bro, the series with that the other dude, not the Ezra Miller dude, the brown hair guy. But only up to like even Arrow, like Arrow and shit was good up to like season 3, not even like season 2, or after season 1 when they blew up the city, like after that type of shit. And like season 2 of Flash or 3, and then after that I'm kind of done with the show. I'm not gonna lie.
So while he's not necessarily on the same,
but I do prefer the series one.
Regarding like adamantium bonding and all that kind of stuff, he is probably one of the single greatest assassins and mercenaries in the entirety of the Marvel universe. It's crazy how good he is. And he even goes as far as to say Interpol's reward, right? The international police, their reward just shot up for Victor Von Doom. Like literally everybody's got it out for this guy. Everybody's coming for this guy. And so where Dr. Doom is able to initially get the upper hand on both Union Jack as well as Maverick, he had instructed his
Right, every day they bring Grant Austin. That's what it was. Instead of Ezra. Yeah, I mean they're not though. They're not. They're not. They're not. They're gonna end up redoing the whole. The guy's too old now. They messed up so bad. But they're probably gonna maybe bring him in as a cameo or something like that. But I don't think they give him a full blown series or something.
Ultimately, he ends up basically just surrendering to various forces that show up here. Now, once he's taken, he's actually brought in by a combination of different things. The first two are Silver Sable and Amy Chen. Now, these two are particularly important, but only in certain circles in Marvel Comics. So Silver Sable runs a group called the Wild Pack, which is one part information brokering and one part mercenary work. So they are guys that basically travel the world. They pick up people who are supposed to be picked up by various governmental agencies or corporations or what have you. But because Silver Sable is networked with so many different organizations and groups out there, she's basically a person tied into a ton of information. So even if she's not necessarily coming after you, if somebody else is coming after you, they can actually hit up Silver Sable. And if they're able to offer the right price, she'll give them the information that they need. The other person that's brought here is Dr. Stephen Strange. Now, the reason why Stephen Strange is here is one, because this story takes place before he died. And two, because as most people who are familiar with Dr. Doom in Marvel Comics know, Dr. Doom and Dr. Strange have a very strong history together. The most notable instance of the two of them working together was when they traveled to basically the realm of Mephisto. They traveled to Hell, and the story Triumph and Torment.
Henry Cavill's the man to go. I think Henry Cavill as an actor is the best actor for Superman. The best story was given to this guy. The best story was given to him for an actual Superman movie. But the best visual actor, yeah, Henry Cavill. I won't lie to you. I won't lie. I'll agree with you.
You know, Jedi mind trick mysticism stuff. Dr. Doom would be there to basically bring it to an end. But as we know, Dr. Doom has no real intention of doing that. Now, the irony behind all this, and this is the important thing to understand, based on the visions that Dr. Doom has been getting, which he doesn't really know the origin of it, and we don't really even know the origin of it at the moment, is that these visions indicate somewhere along the line, Dr. Doom does something which ushers in an era of peace all across the world and literally brings a kind of utopia that had never been seen before. And so that's why Dr. Doom, one, allows himself to surrender because he's kind of curious about where these visions are leading, but two, Kang the Conqueror suddenly...
Duke Mass, yeah, he's a great actor. As an actor, yes, but as a director and shit, they gave him a terrible script, terrible movie, man. Not gonna lie. Same shit happened to the Iron Fist. But he's gonna end up being Wolverine, so it makes up for it.
So that's kind of the on-running theme. Like, Kang the Conqueror will appear more over the course of the story. And really, if anything, he kind of shows up. I mean, Dr. Doom does fight him a couple times, but he shows up more often than not in order to help Doom because he's like, the things that you're going to do are basically going to make the Earth a utopia, but it's also going to make the Earth weaker, and it makes it easier for me to conquer. So, like, here's some stuff to help you, because in helping you, I'm helping myself, right? Like, that's really what he does for a good chunk of the story, and it's hilarious the times that he shows up. It's funny. But one of the things that Doom says is, okay, if this future you see is true, and it matches the visions that I've been having...
It's going to be a harder one.
Right? Like, if you want to be able to conquer the Earth in the future because of what I'll end up doing, then free me and get me out of here. And so one of the things that they do is they sabotage the engines of the vessel, and then they basically escape. Now, you guys are probably asking yourself, why don't they just teleport out of it? The reality is when you're dealing
like
with...
what?
Marvel plays it fast and loose, right? If Kang basically destroyed or sabotaged the engines, it's because in looking over all the different timelines, it's the only one where they successfully escape. That's kind of the undercurrent that Marvel uses, right? Like, Kang does everything he does for a particular reason. But the reality is that once this is done, basically Kang teleports away, and Dr. Doom casts some mysticism in order to save himself. Following that, he literally goes underground. He dons a kind of mask and hides himself, and he takes off to the city of New York. Now, when he gets there, he basically ends up encountering what are these sort of visions of Morgan Le Fay. Now, these visions come in the form of her appearing in like Times Square on TV screens, different things like that. Only Doctor Doom can see her. This is one of those elements of Marvel Comics that's really cool. Morgan Le Fay has been around for an exceedingly long time. And in fact, she's been around about the same time as Merlin in Marvel Comics. And the thing about this is she actually originates from Atlantis, or at least the Atlantean territories, before the Great Cataclysm during the Second Host, when the Celestials showed up and then attacked the Deviants. That is to say, she's been around for thousands of years, and she's incredibly powerful. She's not the most powerful person ever, but it's kind of a loose-knit family between like her and Doctor Doom and Doctor Strange and like the Scarlet Witch and Brother Voodoo, people like that. Just these people that practice like magic and mysticism, which is really weird when you think about it, because like there was a time when Morgan Le Fay and Doctor Doom banged, so that's kind of cool. But the thing about this is that while all that's going on, what you end up having is Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four, while it's off panel, he comes to the realization that if Doctor Doom has actually escaped and Doctor Doom's out there on the lam, then what they need is someone who's every bit as intelligent as Doctor Doom, meaning this person is like kind of shares the #1 spot for the smartest person in the Marvel Universe, but is also immensely powerful. Powerful enough that they can stand toe-to-toe with Doctor Doom. And so what you end up having is Herbie the robot, who's kind of like the robotic assistant of the Fantastic Four, basically traveling to Cornell and meeting with Adam Brashear and bringing Adam Brashear in as a person that can actually capture Doctor Doom. Now, a lot of people are going to ask the question, how in the world is it that like Blue Marvel is on the same level as Doctor Doom? Is this just something you're making it up, Rob? I'm not making this up at all. And the reason why I say that is because there's a point when Blue Marvel is meeting with Herbie, and you know, at that point, you know, Blue Marvel's like, okay, so Reed Richards is finally taking me seriously, and Herbie's like, well, you were the top available, right? Like you were the next best choice, which is kind of a crappy way to put it. But then Herbie also goes on to say, you match Doctor Doom in intellect and strength, especially since he's without his powers. Now, the way
that's why.
This information
Okay, makes sense.
That Reed Richards has in his database. What that means is that in Marvel Comics, what Christopher Cantwell is establishing here, that Reed Richards is one, well aware of who Adam Brashear is, which is something that we already knew, and then two, looking at Adam Brashear, the Blue Marvel, top to bottom, from his intelligence to his strength to his powers and so on, Reed has basically established that Blue Marvel is as intelligent and capable as Doctor Doom. What this means is that Blue Marvel shares the #1 spot as the smartest person in the world with Reed Richards, Doctor Doom, and Valeria Richards, right? It's a really cool moment. This is one of those things that you're probably going to see people referencing when other folks ask the question, where does Blue Marvel reside in terms of intelligence, strength, so on and so forth. And so following this, what you end up doing is picking back up with Doom while he's traveling with Morgan Le Fay, and they travel to meet a guy called the Witness. Now, this is the one and only appearance of the Witness, at least in this form that I'm aware of in Marvel Comics. But the idea behind this guy is he can basically look into the eyes of another person and then see exactly what their future is. And what the Witness says is that Doctor Doom is going to die, and it's the saddest day on Earth. It's absolutely beautiful. But we don't really find out exactly how this death happens, but what it does seem to do is kind of fall in line with the visions that Doctor Doom's been having, where he becomes this person that literally saves the world. Then it would be a tragic and sad day because the world would have lost somebody significant to them. The kicker is that before any of this goes down and any other questions can be asked, Doctor Doom is killed on the spot, and he's actually assassinated, and the person who takes him out is none other than Taskmaster Tony Masters. I told you this story gets amazing. Now again, in this moment, what ends up happening is because Doctor Doom is by all standards of measurement dead, he wakes up in hell. He wakes up in the realm of Mephisto, and traveling there, he basically dons this kind of hell armor, which I gotta tell you guys, is probably the second most badass Doctor Doom's ever
Actually, it looks pretty crazy.
Better than this was when he was God King Doom, so he basically had his normal outfit, but it was all white, which was dope. And I'm surprised no one's cosplayed as God King Doom at any Comic-Cons. It kind of astounds me, but this looks dope. Oh my god, like it looks so beast. But what ends up happening is Doctor Doom comes face to face with Mephisto. Now the thing about this is Doctor Doom tells him right off the bat, I'm not supposed to be here. And the response to Mephisto is, that's what they all say, but I'm glad to have your soul now and forever. And Doctor Doom immediately attacks Mephisto. Now, here's the thing to understand about Mephisto, right? This guy, it's a misnomer when it comes to how powerful Mephisto is. With Mephisto himself, he is at the peak of his power when he's in his own realm, but he's not indestructible and he's not unstoppable. But the thing about this is that Doctor Doom is immensely powerful. The reality here is Doctor Doom's not powerful enough to overcome Mephisto, to beat him in his own realm like this. And so what kind of goes on here is a bit of bouncing back and forth where Mephisto starts playing games with Doctor Doom. Now, one of the things that I want to establish here, and it's really kind of more of a background of what's taking place, is that you do have the kingdom of Latveria where Doctor Doom normally resides. What you have next to it is a place called Symkaria. And Symkaria has kind of been a war-torn place for quite some time. Only recently has it actually established any measure of an organized government. And so what's going on here is that Symkaria is actually organizing battle formations, and they're in the process of trying to conquer Latveria while Doctor Doom is not there. So that's an important plot point to keep in mind. Again, we're not going to be talking a lot about that, but we will talk about it at the end because it does become incredibly important at the end of this. But the thing about this, kind of focusing on the here and now, what Mephisto does is he tells Doctor Doom, if you can convince Valeria that you deserve to live, then you can return to your life. Now, here's the thing. Valeria, there's two different ones. There's Valeria Richards, who's the daughter of Reed Richards, and then there's a different Valeria. So, no, we're not talking about, you know, Valeria Richards, right? This 11-year-old kid that Doctor Doom was in love with. That's weird, right? That's weird and creepy and
what the fuck?
Valeria is a character who's
I mean,
exceedingly old school in Marvel.
Yeah, not. I mean that. I was reading your chat. That's fucking crazy.
20 in 1969. Valeria was a person who lived in the same camp that Doctor Doom did when he was a little kid. They were basically, you know, they kind of fell in love as teenagers as much as anybody could. But as Doctor Doom became consumed by vengeance and power, Valeria basically left him behind, right? She just didn't want to be a part of that life. And as a result of that, she eventually fled. Doctor Doom caught up to her and basically convinced her that he was going to leave all that madness behind, and all he wanted was her, love, and a life. And so she ultimately bought into it. What was really going on in probably one of the most just amazing stories that Mark Waid ever wrote in the Fantastic Four back in Volume 3, back in 2003, the idea here is that what Doctor Doom had done is he had actually tricked Valeria, and he effectively sold her soul behind her back so that he could attain mystical armor, right? Enhance his powers. And so when that happened, her soul was sent to the realm of Mephisto. It was a pretty shady thing to do. And that's why Mephisto makes this claim. If you can convince the only woman in the world who ever loved you that you betrayed her, that you deserve life, then I will give it to you. And that's the crazy thing, is Victor Von Doom tries to do it. And he even tries to rationalize his actions. No. I needed that because I'm going to make the world a better place. I'm going to make the world a way more interesting place. Your soul, right, eternal damnation for you, that was a sacrifice I was willing to make in order to make that happen, right? The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. The reality here is he's not really apologetic for it. And so in spewing all this stuff about everything he's seen, suddenly you end up having Valeria that transforms into a demon, really Mephisto, that's kind of been impersonating her, and then like really tormenting Doctor Doom. And it's like, I've seen this life that you say you've seen, Doctor Doom. I see how you save everything and so on and so forth. You're never going to attain it. That's going to be your damnation here, right? Your eternal torment is going to be that you know without a shadow of a doubt that your one dream in this world actually comes true, that you become this leader of this earth, you lead it into utopia, you become everything that you believe yourself to be, and you're never going to be able to attain it. That's going to be your hell. And so literally a fight breaks out between the two, and it's pretty knockdown, drag out. But in the middle of all this, Mistress Death appears and is like, done, this fight's over, right? He will return to his life, Mephisto. Now here's the thing, even Mephisto himself, regardless of any level of power he has, is not stupid enough to fight Mistress Death. She's the literal living embodiment of death. All she has to do is will it, and Mephisto ceases to exist. That's it. I mean, that's literally what you're talking about here. So not even he is stupid enough to invoke her ire. And the funny thing about this is that where Doctor Doom asks, right, like, are you doing this so that I can truly go back to Earth and become the person that saves it? And her response is, No, it's because you will become my greatest servant of all. You will bring a level of death and destruction that the world has never seen. It's a crazy thing, because what ends up happening is that after this whole circumstance arrives, or really ends, that Dr. Doom wakes up in the home of Morgan Le Fay, who had taken his body back to her apartment, and of course, the two of them are joined by Blue Marvel. Now, as soon as Dr. Doom sees Adam Brashear, he immediately fires on him and gets him out of there, because Dr. Doom knows how powerful Adam Brashear is. He knows how capable he is, and if a true knockdown, drag-out fight between the two happens, that given his current circumstance, it's highly unlikely that Dr. Doom will be able to overpower Adam Brashear and basically keep him from being arrested, right? So that's why he literally sends him flying in the moment to sort of get him out of the way. At that point, yet again, Kang the Conqueror pops up. Kang the Conqueror appears. And it's one of those things where it's kind of an information brokering, right? At that point, Dr. Doom's like, okay, Kang, I need you to rattle your brain. I need you to tell me what timelines there are where I was successfully killed in this moment, here and now. Not 5 days ago, right? Not 50 minutes ago, at this moment right now, right? I need to know who it was that killed me. And the response of Kang is, it was Taskmaster, and he was hired by Advanced Idea Mechanics. And so what literally ends up happening here is Dr. Doom finds the base of Advanced Idea Mechanics, right? He literally breaks in, he steals their weapons, and starts shooting the place up. He kills everyone, right? Like every single soldier they have, they all die. Now, here's the thing. I had previously stated that Dr. Doom, without his powers, is basically useless. I was wrong, right? I was 100% wrong. Unlike most people on the internet, I can admit when I'm wrong when I think I'm wrong. Unfortunately, I usually never think I'm wrong, so I usually never admit when I am wrong. Just kidding. But here's one of the things, right? I never really considered Dr. Doom to be capable when he didn't have his arms and armament. This dude's a beast, man. This guy's rolling through here with just the biggest gun I've ever seen, killing everyone he sees, right? Just overpowering them all. He duplicates himself several times over, and all those different forces, right? All those different versions of himself start attacking all these different soldiers. So we still use those powers to a degree. But at the end of the day, it comes down to him and Taskmaster. Now, this is when you really get to see what Dr. Doom is capable of. I never believed he was good when it came to hand-to-hand combat, mostly because you never really see him doing hand-to-hand combat. It's always like, you know, I'm Dr. Doom and magical spells and just badassery all over the place. That's usually all you ever see. But seeing him facing off against Taskmaster like this and overcoming Tony Masters is impressive as hell, right? It's a pretty cool thing, because remember, when you're fighting against Taskmaster, you're not just fighting Tony Masters, you're fighting everyone Tony Masters has ever fought, right? So you're fighting Captain America, Spider-Man, Deadpool, Wolverine, like all these different characters, because it's a Rolodex. He just pulls those fighting styles out. And depending on the circumstance, especially when he was fighting Black Panther, he actually merged all those fighting styles into one, to where he would punch like Captain America, but he would dodge like Spider-Man, and he would kick like Deadpool. It was cool, man. It was just one of the coolest things. Just some amazing moments that you see in Marvel.
Taskmaster.
And so once Dr. Doom gets the upper hand on Taskmaster, knowing that Taskmaster's mission was quote-unquote finished with Dr. Doom, the next thing he wants to know is, who are you supposed to go after next, right? Because he literally asked him, who hired Advanced Idea Mechanics to kill me, right? That's what I want to know. Who hired them to take me out? Who hired you to take me out? And where he initially won't give that explanation, the reality here is Dr. Doom's smart enough to know that if Taskmaster is going after Dr. Doom, then Taskmaster is also going after people associated with Dr. Doom. And so that's when he's like, I want to know who this is. Who is it you're supposed to go after next? And that's when he says, it's Frozina, right? It's a woman named Frozina. And at that moment, Dr. Doom basically ends up realizing there's a much bigger thing going on here, and immediately goes after that chick, right? Immediately goes after Frozina. Now, the other thing that takes place here is kind of working his ranks up, right? Basically continuing to take out Taskmaster, as well as what's seemingly the rest of Advanced Idea Mechanics. He's met by the arrival of MODOK. Now, MODOK doesn't really offer much in the way of a challenge here for Dr. Doom. He kind of does, but he kind of doesn't. He tries to shoot him with like a mental blast. Dr. Doom has the shield of Taskmaster and his sword. He just stabs MODOK in the chest. But this killing is also a long time coming, because remember, MODOK was part of Intelligentsia, which was the organization that stripped Dr. Doom of his intelligence. If you're not familiar with that storyline, we're actually covering it right now in my videos on Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four. So we'll post a link to that video down in the playlist. But in the midst of all this, you end up picking up on Liberty Island. Now, Liberty Island is a place that has these kind of weather stations that are being created or being used by this woman named Frazina. And the idea behind this is it's basically an attempt, even if only in a smaller localized space, to basically control weather. In Marvel Comics, that kind of stuff happens all the time. It's not really a new thing. It's not really landmark. It's just something that Christopher Cantwell's throwing in here to show what she's doing. But in the midst of all this, one of the things that we
The minus 25, that's one.
Latveria. And we know this because there are discussions that take place between her and
Yeah.
people around her where they ask questions like, you know, is Dr. Doom really an effective leader? You know, is it a good thing that he's gone? That kind of stuff. And she's like, understand, right? The law of sedition and rendition. Those individuals who speak ill of Latveria and its leader, especially Latverian citizens, will literally be tossed in some kind of a re-education camp. I don't want to be one of those guys, so I'm going to go back to doing what I was doing, right? That kind of a thing. It's just kind of bred into them in terms of how they function. The other part of this here is that while you do have Dr. Doom in a library who's basically reading up on Frazina, the reason why this name is so significant comes when he's visited by Kang the Conqueror yet again. And when the two of them really start talking, is Dr. Doom saying, in these visions that I had, the woman that I end up marrying is Frazina. Like, that's the person that I end up marrying and that I end up having a life with. So the reality is, if she's a target of advanced idea mechanics and they're looking to kill her by using Taskmaster or somebody, I've got to find a way to keep her alive. She's supposed to end up becoming my wife. And so this is a really significant moment here, and there's actually history between Dr. Doom and Frazina indirectly. And the reason why this happens is because you do have a little bit of a skirmish that takes place between Dr. Doom and Kang the Conqueror, but the significance of this really comes in the form of the fact that when Dr. Doom ends up visiting Frazina, she initially rebukes him, right? I mean, at first she's kind of like, oh my God, it's Lord Dr. Doom, you know, that kind of a thing. But once the veil goes away and he tells her, just address me like a regular person, she doesn't like him, and in fact, she hates him because he tells her, like, I've had visions, and you and I are supposed to get married, which is one way to propose, right? Just
Yeah,
like,
that's pretty
run up on a
insane.
random chick, hey, random woman over there, I've had visions, we're supposed to get married, you want to get hitched, right? I mean, that's not going to work. But the reason why Frazina hates Dr. Doom is because there was a point during Doom War when Dr. Doom had invaded Wakanda and stole its vibranium that a journalist in Latveria had spoken out against Dr. Doom because of that. And what Dr. Doom had done is he had jailed that guy basically for sedition, right? For speaking ill of Latveria and of Dr. Doom. And that guy is still serving a prison sentence. That guy is the father of Frazina. And that's why she hates Dr. Doom, because the guy was just doing his job, and the price he paid is basically a life of imprisonment. And even Dr. Doom goes as far as to say, I should have had your father executed for what he did. Just be happy in the fact that I didn't, and I was feeling particularly generous. Now, that's the most Dr. Doom thing to say, to be honest with you. But in the midst of all this, a couple things happen. The first is that you basically have the arrival of Adam Brashear alongside Herbie, and then you have the arrival of Silver Sable and Victorious. Now, I've kind of held off on talking about them up to this point. The way things had played out with their characters is that Victorious was kind of like the second in command to Dr. Doom. Whenever he's not in Latveria, she's the one who runs the show. And so where you basically had the Symkarians who were attempting to invade Latveria, successfully did so, and then took over the country, that Victorious was basically ousted. But the other part of this is that Silver Sable, being as smart as she is, had realized something else is going on here, and she was actually being used. And so she and Victorious worked together to try to find Dr. Doom so they could basically put all their information together and figure out what the bigger picture is. Now, of course, Blue Marvel being here is just for the purpose of trying to, you know, to grab Dr. Doom. And it's really an amazing moment because a fight breaks out between the two, and Adam Brashear holds his own against Dr. Doom. And that's one of the things that I hope you notice here. In terms of Dr. Doom facing off against Blue Marvel, it's really him just trying to hold off the power of Adam Brashear. And this is due to the fact that in this moment, Dr. Doom is not as powerful as Adam Brashear. It's a pretty cool moment, right? It's a pretty cool and badass thing where literally Blue Marvel is more powerful than Dr. Doom in this moment. Now, of course, yet again, Kang the Conqueror shows up. I told you he would show up at like the funniest moments and at the most inopportune times. What's really cool though is that this is an exceedingly opportune time. He shows up here with just this insane weapon and is like, okay, Dr. Doom, this is for you because remember, you gotta live so that you can make the world easier to conquer for me. You're like, I told you that's his whole motivation is showing up here strictly for that. And in fact, what you end up having is Adam Brashear, who immediately attacks Kang the Conqueror because Kane the Conqueror destroys Herbie. And so in that moment, Adam Brashear, like the Blue Marvel, kills Kane the Conqueror, right? He kills him on the spot, just incinerates that guy. And that's when Dr. Doom's like, okay, yeah, we got to get out of here. Like, we got to find a way to bail. The other part of this, though, is that no one's prepared for what comes next. Because what happens here is that with Kane the Conqueror, it wasn't simply just a weapon that he gave Dr. Doom. What he also gave him was an advanced suit of armor from his own timeline, right? From Kang's own timeline. In doing that, what it does is it restores Victor Von Doom back to his full power. He's got the full brunt of his technology combined with his mysticism and advanced weaponry from Kane the Conqueror. Blue Marble's like, look, here's the thing, Doom. We have to put these grievances aside. This black hole is going to emerge. Everything's going nuts with the Antlion Collider. We have to do something. And the response of Dr. Doom is, no. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go home and I'm going to take care of my country. Reed Richards wanted to be the one to run the show, then let Reed Richards run the show. And if the entirety of the project goes awry and a black hole singularity opens at the moon, I will deal with it and I will take care of it, but I will take care of it because I'm better than he is. But I want the world to know that Reed Richards is a failure. I want the world to know that he's nowhere near as capable as I am. Literally, Dr. Doom is willing to potentially see the Earth destroyed just to make Reed Richards look bad. And so where this picks up is actually the first time they've spent any meaningful time together over the course of the story arc. Now,
Dr. Doom is a crazy ass hater. He's a crazy ass hater.
Back in the day, and the original comic escapes me, but back in the day in Marvel, there was a point when Kane the Conqueror, after he adopted the identity of Rama-Tut and was defeated by the Fantastic Four in Ancient Egypt, ended up coming back to the modern era, and then after meeting Dr. Doom, basically fashioned a suit of his own that was similar to Dr. Doom and started calling himself the Scarlet Centurion, right? So just one of those little bits of history here. But the long and short of it is that these guys have a lot of respect for each other, but their egos are off the charts, right? They're like Dwayne Johnson cooking the books with Black Adam.
The hierarchy of power in the DC universe is about to change.
Right? I mean, like, it's just a whole new level of ego. Like, it's literally what this is. And so that's why one of the first things they talk about here is whether or not they're actually related. And that's one of the things that's just kind of a big question that's existed in Marvel Comics for eons and eons. And the reason why is because Kane the Conqueror's real name is Nathaniel Richards. And of course, you have Reed Richards, and Reed Richards' father's name is Nathaniel Richards. So for years and years in Marvel Comics, and I mean, when I say years, I mean like decades, right? For like the last 50 years or so in Marvel Comics, give or take a little bit, fans always found themselves asking the question, is Kane the Conqueror, Nathaniel Richards, is he descended from Dr. Doom? Is he descended from Reed Richards? And in fact, they're going to pose this question as to whether or not Nathaniel Richards, right, Kane the Conqueror, is actually the father of Reed from like maybe a different universe or operating under a different change in his character's history or whatever the case happens to be. We'll talk about that here in a second because it gets a little wonky. But one of the things that happens here is that these guys are basically taking the long road, right? Instead of just like teleporting somewhere or having some vessel from Latveria pick them up and take them where they need to be, or Kane the Conqueror using technology, instead they literally have to lay low. So they're going old school, man. They're hitching rides in like train cars and like walking and stuff. It's cool. Unfortunately for a couple of these poor saps, these guys basically decide to stow away on one of the trains, literally hitch a ride, and then like one of them gets into the train car with Dr. Doom and Kang and is like, hey, what's going on, gentlemen? Do you guys mind sharing this train car with me? Now, is anybody who knows anything about Dr. Doom knows this guy does not suffer vagrants. So they blast him out of the train car and send that guy flying to his doom, right? After that, it picks up with the two of them just kind of there at like a campfire, right? And again, that's kind of how this conversation continues on. That what ends up happening is Dr. Doom even goes as far as to say, I've heard rumors that you're Reed Richards' father. And the response of Kang is, I've heard that too, but he looks nothing like me. Now, the reason why this is being thrown out here is because this goes back to Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four, which we need to continue because if anything, after after where we stopped, it's just a handful of like small ancillary stories, right? Just like one-shots and little mini-series, and it's Jonathan Hickman just kind of cleaning things up. So it's not essential by any standard of measurement, but it would be fun to go back, right? Because we still have Franklin Richards from the future who's currently in the present day doing his thing and crazy levels of reality warping and so on and so forth. Plus there's the ultimate fate of Ben Grimm, which is kind of screwed up. But the thing about this is that when Jonathan Hickman wrote the Fantastic Four, and specifically when we got what was called the Big Hunt, so all these different variants of Nathaniel Richards, Reed's father, father across the multiverse, all facing off against each other and jumping in and out of different universes, right? Age of Ultron, Days of Future Past, different things like that. That one of the big theories that rose to prominence during that time is that because Reed Richards' father's name is Nathaniel Richards, you had the Great Hunt, you have variants of Nathaniel, that they all end up becoming basically versions of Kang. And so that's where that theory came from initially, or really gained the most traction, I should say, is that Kang is potentially the father of Reed. So again, it's one of these really interesting things, because when you're talking about a guy like Kang who does time travel, while he has had a lot of identities over the years, the reality of this is that Kang has actually forgotten a lot of the things that he's done over the course of his existence, right? A really good example of this, if you want to put this to the test, tell me what was on the wall on the left-hand side in your 3rd grade class. What did your teacher have written on the wall? What was the name of your 3rd grade teacher? And that's what you're talking about here, right? Kang the Conqueror.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Out of different points in time.
That makes sense.
Right? And so because of that, it all just kind of turns into an amorphous blob of things he's done. But that's why you'll have comics where somebody will say, well, Kang, what about the time that you did this? And he won't know what they're talking about because he will have forgotten it. And so again, it's just one of those interesting things when it comes to his character's history. So that's why the theory still holds traction, and that's why it's entirely true. But of course, following this, it's also Kang basically telling Doom, I'm not your father. And the response to Doom is, I know you're not. Perhaps I'm your father, right? Like, it's one of the things where they kind of go back and forth. We never get any definitive answers. Truth to tell, I don't think Marvel will ever give us a definitive answer as to whether or not Kang is related to Reed Richards or to Dr. Doom, which one he's descended from. Because it's just one of those cool little mysteries that just kind of exists out there. Now, of course, following this, you have another poor bastard that decides to roll up on Kang the Conqueror and Dr. Doom as they're walking down this deserted highway. These two folks ride up on him, right? And one of them's like, so what do we got here, right? I ain't never seen more colorific looking chuckle ducks in all my life. What's your name, Fancy Cleopatra? Referring to Kang the Conqueror. And they're like, how about you, Steely Dan? What's behind your Iron Curtain? And of course, Dr. Doom, in response to this, helps them finish with all their living. Anybody who is aware of Dr. Doom, and even Kang knows, you don't just roll up on these guys talking smack like that, right? That's just something that you don't do. Otherwise, you will be made to meet your maker. And that's literally it. But one of the coolest things about this is one of the reasons why I love this comic so much. One of the coolest things about this is that, again, there's a lot of respect between the two. Depending on the story arc, they're mortal enemies. But the reality here is that the intelligence of Dr. Doom can never be underestimated by anybody. Even Reed Richards and people like Valeria Richards, the daughter of Reed, who's every bit as smart as Dr. Doom and Reed himself. People like Moon Girl, who's that intelligent, or even Adam Brashear, who's as intelligent, right? At least that's what this story solidified. They all basically go to Dr. Doom in some capacity as the guy that can answer questions that they have that they simply can't find answers to on their own. He's wildly intelligent. And that's one of the reasons that his character, even alongside Kang, is so cool. Because even Kang himself recognizes the intelligence of Dr. Doom, and the reason why that needs to be respected. But Dr. Doom also respects Kang, because between the two of them, they have an unwillingness to be defeated, to defy all the odds, and to ensure they come out on top. More so than that, what Dr. Doom respects above all is, one, a person's intelligence and a person's fortitude. How hard are you willing to work to get what you want? Do you take the easy road, or do you take the hard road? Even if the hard road doesn't need to be taken, do you take it anyway for no other reason than the fact that it'll make you more well-rounded and make you better? And Kang the Conqueror is very much the guy who will take the hard road. Everything he has, he worked for, with the exception of the time travel device. He stole that. I mean, truth to tell, let's be honest with ourselves, right? It was literally Dr. Doom's time platform in the 30th century, and Kang just took it, right? But outside of that, the guy is unwilling to give ground and will always do whatever it takes to win. And Doom can always respect that. And so that's why you have this kind of conversation where Doom asks the question, why are you even bothering to help me? And the response of Kang is, I explained I will conquer the world that you saved. And the response to Doom is, I will save no world. And again, Kang says, no, I've seen the utopia that you've created. And then the response to Doom is, you've also seen a future where Earth is overrun by a cohort of mechanized dinosaurs. And that's when Kang makes this amazing point, and he says, true, still, wherever Dr. Doom stands, there exists a lust for power, one I can use to my advantage. And that's where Doom calls his bluff. And he says, honestly, I think you're just lonely. And the two of them just kind of start going back and forth. I am not. you're lonely. No, you're lonely. I'm not lonely because I'm Dr. Doom and I'm a misanthrope. Well, I'm more of a misanthrope times 2. Right? It's literally just kind of this bickering back and forth and this sort of nonsensical and almost sort of a bromance that exists between these guys. I don't know if anybody uses that word anymore, but it's great to see Doom and Kang relating to each other in this way because more often than not, you see them as enemies. It's cool because literally after they share this laugh together, the response of Doom is, I will destroy you, Kang. And the response of Kang is, I'll destroy you first, Victor. Right? So it's just one of those cool little moments that goes on there. Now, having said that, once they make their way to Texas, what ends up going on here is Dr. Doom has what he calls an ace in the hole, in the sense that he was able to kind of contact people through a kind of underground network and say, like, I need something delivered to me at this location. So at this point, they're literally just biding time and waiting, when out of nowhere, they're met by the arrival of Paladin with a minigun, who literally just starts spraying the whole place down. Literally, this guy's just standing there with a minigun, unloading everything. Honestly, it looks like an M60, but he's just spraying everything down, only for them to find out the way in which they were found was because of the orb. Now, here's a few things to explain here. Is Paladin an important character? No, Paladin sucks. He's always sucked. He's never been a relevant guy. There's never been an instance in the history of Marvel Comics when all these villains are all teaming up to face off against the heroes and they're losing and then Paladin shows up and the day's safe. That's never happened, right? The guy's about as irrelevant of a mercenary as anybody possibly can be. But more so than that, the orb, this guy's just downright goofy, but it is still cool to see that they have their history intact. So here's the thing. When it comes to the orb, this guy was completely and totally irrelevant in Marvel Comics until a story was written that was called Original Sin. And what this guy had done is he had discovered the dead body of the Watcher, which had actually been killed by Nick Fury. But he had taken one of the Watcher's eyes. And because everything the Watcher has seen over the course of his existence was stored inside of his eyes, the orb basically broadcast all that information to the world, so everybody learned everything about themselves that they had previously never known. A really good example of this is during, oh my god, Jonathan Hickman's Avengers, New Avengers, when Captain America was originally part of the Illuminati during the incursions, when like the multiverse was collapsing and the Illuminati were talking about destroying alternate Earths, that when he disagreed, his mind was wiped by Doctor Strange at the direction of Iron Man, and then he was thrown out of the Illuminati, so he didn't know any of that stuff. But during Original Sin, all those memories were restored to him, and then he had lost his super soldier serum and just became this crotchety old son of a gun and was literally going going after the Illuminati. Like, he took over S.H.I.E.L.D. and brought like the full might of the U.S. military and the intelligence community on to like find the Illuminati. It was amazing, man, because for a time, Captain America was kind of a warlord, and it was pretty boss. Like, it was amazing. It's one of the best moments in the history of Marvel Comics. But again, the orb still has one of the Watcher's eyes. Now, the Watcher himself is back, right? But the orb still has one of his eyes, meaning the orb sees all. Like, literally has like what you could argue to be cosmic awareness, although there's nothing to indicate that it operates on a universal level. But literally, like with the hunt for Doom, it's Doom's over there in Texas, right? He knows right off the bat. And so what ends up happening is Kang brandishes really one of his older weapons, which is called the Ultra Diode. But what it does is it basically just saps people of their willpower. So it reduces you down to the most pathetic version of yourself, right? So most people on Twitter and Reddit, and the result of this is that these guys just kind of cower into like a fetal position and just sort of cry about how like the end is nigh, their lives don't serve any useful purpose or anything like that. But the cool thing here is that once this plane, right, this contact lands and Dr. Doom is given his ace in the hole, that what we end up finding out is that is actually the ultimate nullifier. Now here's the thing, man, and I'm kind of amazed that Christopher Cantwell's just sort of treating this as a thing, right? Like, it's just sort of there. The ultimate nullifier is quite literally the ultimate weapon in Marvel, right? I mean, I would argue this thing is way beyond the power of an Infinity Gauntlet. Because the thing about the ultimate nullifier is that the power that it possesses is relative to the person who's using it. Initially, it was created by Galactus, and then it was attained by the Fantastic Four during the original Galactus trilogy. Literally, Johnny Storm and the Watcher go to Galactus's ship, Ta-2. They steal it, they bring it back to Earth, they give it to Reed, and then Reed starts brandishing this thing in Galactus's face, and then Galactus just flees for his life. That's a very simplified version of what happens. But like, this thing scares the hell out of Galactus. And the reason why is because if you put the ultimate nullifier in the hands of an idiot, it may not necessarily work. You put this thing in the hand of Reed Richards, you could annihilate the universe. Dr. Doom, you could wipe out the whole universe. The benefit of the ultimate nullifier is that it doesn't just destroy whatever you aim it at, it basically makes it so it never existed. So a really good example of this is that if Dr. Doom were to point the ultimate nullifier at Spider-Man, then Spider-Man would simply cease to exist. Not only that, it would be as if he never existed. So seeing seemingly nobody would have ever heard of Spider-Man. Nobody would have ever, like, any images of Spider-Man that exists would ultimately be gone, right? They would just disappear. Like, this guy, the entire evidence of this guy's existence would vanish forever. That's really the major implication of the Ultimate Nullifier, and there's really no way to bring them back. So that's why I say, I mean, presumably, you could point this thing at, like, the Infinity Gauntlet or any cosmic entities, probably even the Living Tribunal, maybe. I'm not really sure. I guess it just kind of depends. But the thing is insanely powerful. So the fact that it's in the possession of Dr. Doom means this guy means business, man. And so what ends up happening is that once he has the Ultimate Nullifier, we end up finding out this is the reason why Kang was here in the first place. That the reality here is that Kang wanted to attain the Nullifier for himself, but unless he decided to screw up the time stream, Dr. Doom had to get his hands on it in order for Kang to take it from Dr. Doom. Things have to happen in a certain order when it comes to the progression of time throughout the universe. And so as soon as Dr. Doom gets the Ultimate Nullifier, Kang turns on him and then steals the Ultimate Nullifier. But before he can get away, this is the crazy thing, before he can get away, Dr. Doom quite literally stabs Kang the Conqueror in the neck. Like literally stabs him in the neck, right? Blood goes everywhere, leaves him for dead, and then just takes off on his horse, right? Just like rides off on his horse.
My God.
And so following that, Dr. Doom basically ends up getting to Mexico. And when he arrives there, which is kind of weird to see, he ends up basically grabbing a payphone and he calls Reed Richards from a payphone. And the reason why is because during the time when Doom and Kang were traveling together, the question that they had is, how do we end that black hole? And they were asking questions like, can we use antimatter? It's like, well, antimatter is still composed of mass. So literally, mass plus mass equals more mass. So if you fire some kind of antimatter cannon at a black hole, all it's going to do is just absorb all that mass and grow bigger. You're not going to do anything but feed it. And so that's where Doom's mind began to sort of look over the entirety of the situation. That's when he calls up Reed Richards and he says, your black hole solution is simple, Reed. My guess is that it's standing right next to you. And he says, Brashear, the Blue Marvel, send him inside the Antlion experiment. Now the initial response of Reed is an antimatter collision will just create more mass. And the response of Dr. Doom is, listen, you idiot, right? He says, send him past the event horizon. He can generate a massive amount of negative energy to dissipate the black hole. I know he survived a nuclear explosion, so there's a chance the singularity will not incinerate him. And then he ultimately leaves. Now, here's the reason why that would work. Remember, Adam Brashear is an antimatter reactor, right? He's basically a guy that draws all of his power from the antimatter universe. So imagine how, you know how like Superman draws his power from the sun, right? Solar energy gives him all of his abilities, like it feeds his abilities. That's what happens with Adam Brashear. Instead of him being fed by the power of the sun, he's fed by a whole different universe. But it's also why his power is seemingly limitless, because so long as the negative zone exists, he'll be powerful, and he can presumably channel all the power of the negative zone in different forms and fashions. It's why when it comes down to like physical strength, Adam Brashear is arguably the single strongest character in the Marvel Universe. The best way to test that, and I hope Marvel gives it to us one day, I want to see Blue Marvel versus like Worldbreaker Hulk. I want to see that.
That would be
That
crazy.
would be dope. But
That would be
literally,
crazy.
Because he's an antimatter reactor, that's the response of Dr. Doom. I'm not a physicist, so I don't really even know how all this works, but as I understand it, it would basically be two objects hitting and just canceling each other out, right? -1 plus +1 equals 0. That's really what this would be. So I'm kind of curious to see exactly how this would play out. Well, the way this picks up is it picks up with Adam Brashear, the Blue Marvel, basically traveling into the black hole for the purpose of using his power to try to cancel out the black hole and then literally dissipate it, is basically what would happen. For Dr. Doom, he's returning to Latveria now. So what we're going to do here is with the Adam Brashear portion, it's not overly necessary at this point in time, but the whole gist behind this is that as he travels into the black hole, that the mission again is for him to basically expound as much of his energy as he possibly can, literally channel it outward inside the event horizon of the black hole, or really inside the singularity, and then basically collapse the black hole and then make it out before he's ultimately destroyed. Now, obviously, this is a Marvel comic. It's defying all laws of physics as we know them. Because nothing escapes a black hole. That's the significance of a black hole. So as Adam Brashear gets into this, there's a few things that happen. One, he's met by an alternate reality version of Otto Octavius. And that's when we end up finding out these different visions that Dr. Doom has been having over the course of this story, where he has like a different life. He basically leads the world into a kind of scientific age of enlightenment, really, where he has like a wife and children and so on. That's what's on the other side of this black hole. It's a wormhole, is really what it is, right? It's a tunnel that leads from the main Marvel universe to this alternate reality. And that what's been happening is Dr. Doom has been receiving visions from this alternate reality
of what his life in that universe looks like. But the other part of this, and for reasons that I'll never fully understand, Christopher Cantwell invokes the Brood, right? So like this crazy looking alien race like attacks, and of course Adam Brashear basically fights them off, but it also leads to Dr. Octopus being killed in the process, right? This alternate reality, Otto Octavius being killed. But before we find out what really happens there, what we end up doing is jumping back to Victor Von Doom, right? Now, with his arrival in Latveria, you do have what are basically is kind of inner council, right? So you got Boris, you got Petra, Laren, a few other people, but you also have Christophe Renard. Now, the reason why these guys matter is because, one, Christophe Renard is the heir to the throne. So as soon as this coup d'etat happened, Christophe Renard was like public enemy number 2. Dr. Doom, of course, being public enemy number 1 because he was still alive out there somewhere. But Christophe Renard is like the adopted child of Dr. Doom. And in fact, he's gone so far over the course of his publication history to take his own mind and use Christophe Renard as a backup for him. So as we saw in Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four, for example, if something happened to Dr. Doom and he lost his level of intelligence, he could download his mind from Christophe Renard, and it would be like restoring your PC, right? That's literally what it is here. And so Christophe Renard is so important because he's the rightful heir to Latveria. Now, you've also got Zora, also known as Victorious. She was at one point a kind of herald to a degree of Galactus when he showed up on Earth, but has largely been like the number 2 in terms of Dr. Doom's control of the military and so on, one of his most trusted confidants. But that's really what's happening here, is because when they're out there just kind of surviving and whatnot, and Dr. Doom shows up on the scene, it's Dr. Doom riding a bear, which is probably one of the most baller things that I think I've ever seen Dr. Doom. I mean, he just looks menacing, right? Like literally he's like riding a bear and he's like, I have returned. And like you see that and you're like, yep, he's returned. And we're not gonna argue with that, are we guys? And it's like, nope, we're not gonna argue with that at all. Because the dude is riding a bear and none of us wants to die. Not only that, his bear is his pet. He named him, right? Like literally his name is Novak. And it's not even his pet. He's like, this is my comrade Novak. See that he's fed, right? So like, it's one of those cool things because for all the pomp and circumstance and all the arrogance that Dr. Doom puts out there to the world, the reality here is he's gooey on the inside, right? Like he's gooey, soft, right? Gentle. He's got a little bit of sensitivity on the inside there, right? So you wouldn't know it, right? But it's one of those funny things. So as soon as he arrives here, what he says, and literally addressing his inner council, is he's like, this coup d'etat originated from inside Latveria, as far as I'm aware, and of course it started in Symkaria. But the reality here is that I ruled this country with trust. I trusted my people. I trusted that they would not overthrow me. Now, he does trust to a degree, but he also recognizes they could do that. And in fact, that was highlighted in Hickman's Avengers, the New Avengers, when he was when he was talking to Namor the Submariner in one of the best moments ever. So literally, like when the multiverse was falling apart, and after Namor the Submariner had made his alliance with like Thanos and all those guys, only to find out that Thanos is exactly what we thought he was, which was just a crazy guy that loves to kill stuff. He abandons the Cabal. He shows up at Dr. Doom's doorstep and is like, you've got to help me. And Dr. Doom's like, okay, so here's the thing, Namor. I'm a king. You were a king once upon a time. You understand the bigger picture here, right? Like, do you really think the people in Latveria wouldn't kill me if they chose to? Of course they would. He's like, but I feed them and I protect them. I keep them safe from whatever threats are out there. So before they pray to whatever god they believe in when they go to sleep at night, they give thanks to me. It's like one of the greatest speeches ever, right? And then he tells Namor the Submariner, you're on your own, right? You threw in your lot with Reed Richards, and then you went to Thanos, and now you show up on my doorstep asking me for help? No, sir. Dr. Doom is no one's second choice. He literally just rejects him just because of the fact that he felt like he was his second choice. It was an amazing moment in Marvel Comics. But the thing about this is that as he talks to them, he does know that at any point in time, his own citizenry could literally rise up against him. But it's the fact that it's happened that now he questions everybody. So he tells them all, you're going to prove to me that I should trust you. And as each person goes in turn and provides their own swearing of loyalty to Dr. Doom, we meet up with a guy named Vasily Mikheyev, I think is how you pronounce his name. And it's one of these things because as Dr. Doom starts asking him questions like, how in the world do you think this happened? How do you think this whole coup took place? The response of Vasily is, well, it's obviously traitors in our midst, right? Subverting our security, different things like that. And Doom says, allow me to read you something. And what ended up happening here is that Dr. Doom reads a letter that was written by Vasily to basically a woman named Katarina, who is a Symkarian. And so that's when Dr. Doom and really Vasily starts to realize Dr. Doom already knows Vasily's one of the traitors, that he's one of the people who worked against Dr. Doom in order to orchestrate the coup d'etat in Latveria. And so once this comes to fruition, Vasily can't really lie. Like, he can't really make anything up, right? It's, at this point, if Dr. Doom asks him, what do you know about this letter? Assume it's rhetorical. Assume he already knows the answer. And so that's when Vasily is just like, okay, right, the jig is up. Like, there's nothing he can do. And Dr. Doom tells him, I'll give you a 2-minute running start. This guy hauls ass out the door because he knows Dr. Doom well enough to know he's not messing around. Dr. Doom walks out there, and at 1 minute, 59 seconds, the clock strikes 2 minutes. He fires the shot and kills Vasily on the spot. And then he's like, feed him to my bear. And like, that's it. That's how Dr. Doom gets things done, guys, right? I love how he's handled. I love the way Christopher Cantwell writes Dr. Doom.
I swear.
It's absolutely phenomenal. But the other part of this is he actually ends up meeting with Victorious. Now, he knows Victorious well enough to know there's no way she'd be involved in a coup d'etat against him, right? So for you know, to a degree, she kind of gets a pass. But what he does is he presents her with the ultimate nullifier and says the ultimate nullifier takes an astronomically focused mind in order to use it. Otherwise, the user will destroy themselves or accidentally cause any manner of things to come to an end. So I'm giving it to you to hold on to for safekeeping because my mind is not as focused as it used to be. But then following that, he travels directly to his castle in Latveria. And it's one of the coolest moments because when the coup d'etat took place, a guy named Dmitry Fortunov was basically put in charge of Latveria as the new ruler of the kingdom. He's more of a puppet than anything else, kind of the guy who's there to make it look like he's running the show when in reality, he's just being told what to do. So basically any American politician, and the reality of this is that when
I love this guy.
shows up,
I love
he's
this
kind
guy.
of like the ruler of Latveria. An impressive title, Dmitry, right? An impressive title. You must carry it with dignity. Stand up straight. After all, you're king, and hold your head high. He who reigns looks down on those who don't. But something's missing. Yes, a true leader must have this. And that's when Dr. Doom removes his helmet and shows his face and says, if you are going to be the leader of Latveria, this is what you must look like. And he forces this guy to start cutting his own face up, right? To disfigure his own face. And then he turns, he says, the ruler of Latveria must also be a god,
I'm getting...
Dmitry, right? Can you fly as a god flies? And then he throws him over the banisters, and the guy falls to his death. And he's like, alas, a mere mortal. Quite the pity. But then in that moment, he actually ends up getting a vision of his kids from the alternate reality, but they've cut their faces up to look like him. And the view of it is so astronomically crushing to him that he actually sort of collapses on the spot, right? He almost passes out from the strain. Because remember, these visions that he has of his kids, of the life that he could have, it's what he aspires to. It's what he wants. It's almost like this life is unsullied by everything that exists out there in the world right now. And so what he does is he kind of gives us this little bit of a monologue where he says that over time, you know, once he was met by Victorious, and I wouldn't say nursed back to health, but Victorious was able to help him regain his bearings. Dr. Doom basically sits like, he literally takes his throne back. And with him having the ultimate nullifier, one of the things to understand is the world is scared out of its wits now. Under any normal circumstance, the world would look at Dr. Doom retaking Latveria with a bit of a questionable eye and just kind of be like, can we really trust this guy? But the dude's got the ultimate nullifier in his possession. And Dr. Doom, as far as the world is concerned, albeit the world doesn't know the current goings-on of his mental state, but the world sees Dr. Doom and believes this guy having the ultimate nullifier is enough to literally wipe out the entirety of the universe. Like that, in the blink of an eye. And so no one really questions what it is that he wants. And in fact, he goes as far as to say, like, now that I've taken my throne back, I don't want to conquer the world. I don't want to take over the world. I have no grand aspirations for anything like that. But what I am going to do is I'm going to put down this rebellion that had taken place in Latveria. I'm going to rout out everybody who was from Sinkaria that caused this coup d'etat in the first place, and then I'm going to take Sinkaria, and that's going to be it. And the world doesn't stand in his way. So literally, this guy launches an attack against the neighboring country. And let me tell you something, man. This guy, they were not prepared. This guy comes in and it's just like, it's hell, it's fire and brimstone, right? It's Old Testament, man. This guy comes in and he's literally like, I seized control of this entire country. I conquered everything, right? He says like the Simkarian invasion was over quickly. My blood became charged with the verve as we stamped out every conspiratorial smudge of scum, every whisper of usurping vermin. I even dusted off my old blaster buggy, which is an actual thing that he used to have back in the day. I haven't driven in ages. what fun it was to lay waste to so much at such invigorating speeds. Here was Doom at his greatest. I am a strong proponent of total war and no quarter. If you're going to break the back of an entire nation, you might as well do it right. We even killed most of the livestock. They just clean slated Symkaria, and it was as much of a message as it was anything else. This guy goes full on Kaiser Sose, right? I don't know if we ever ran over that, right? But like Kaiser Sose, the story of Kaiser Sose is amazing, right? We're gonna kind of scroll comment panel so you guys can see what's going on. But the story of Kaiser Sose is amazing because for those of you guys who never heard about this, it was from The Usual Suspects, right? And it's literally Kevin Spacey who gives the story, and he says that Kaiser Sose was just like this drug runner, right? This guy that ran like a small little drug operation, and that was it. But you had these Hungarian warlords that wanted to basically make a name for themselves. And what they knew is that true power is not how much you have and how much you control, it's about your willingness to do what the other guy won't. So these Hungarian warlords, I think they were Hungarian, basically show up at Kaiser Sose's home. They find his wife and kids, right? They basically do what they will with his family, and when Kaiser Sose gets back, he finds his wife has been violated and his kids are crying. And so these guys literally tell him, we want your whole operation. We want it all. We want the drugs, the money, we want your contacts, the whole 9 yards, right? They wanted to show Kaiser Sose that they were men of will, that they were willing to do whatever it took. And so Kaiser Sose showed these men of will just what will really was. This guy killed his wife and his kids. And then he executed every single one of the Hungarian warlords except for one. And then he let that guy go and tell the tale. And then once all these guys, like once his family was buried, then he goes to work, right? He killed these Hungarian warlords' parents. He killed their parents' friends. He burned down the homes that they lived in. He burned down the businesses they lived out of. He killed the people who owed them money. And then he vanished. And that was it, right? You never found out what happened to Kaiser Sose after that. Well, you do, but you got to watch The Usual Suspects to find out. That's literally what this is, man. That's literally what this is. It's like that guy said to John Lithgow in that movie Ricochet. You didn't beat him, you just pissed him off, and now you're fucked, because now he's gonna be out for blood. And so what we end up doing here is we basically switch over to Dr. Doom basically finding Katarina, right after the letter that he read to Vasily. He ends up taking one of his swords. Him and Katarina get in a sword fight. He cuts her down, and that's the end of it. Following that, Katarina tells him, I'm not the one who started the coup d'etat in Latveria from Symkaria. I'm not the one who caused it. Instead, she points him to the person who did. And what he ends up revealing is that it's a woman he's never met. He doesn't know who she is, doesn't know what she's about. But ultimately, these people launched the rebellion against Dr. Doom from Symkaria to seize control of Latveria, and that this woman herself had a daughter. And the daughter that she had was basically left behind when this woman fled after her husband was killed. This woman's been in Symkaria ever since and been plotting to overthrow Dr. Doom. But her daughter was taken by the rebel forces that sided with Dr. Doom and then raised as their own. The girl is Victorious. That literally the number 2 commander of Dr. Doom's army actually has Symkarian blood. Now, Victorious wasn't working against Dr. Doom, and in fact, she didn't even know her own heritage. She didn't know that this woman who had orchestrated this whole coup in Latveria was her own mom. She had no idea that was the case. And so instead, what Dr. Doom does, really with Zora herself, is he orders her to kill this woman after telling Victorious that this woman is her mom. And while Victorious does follow the orders as they were given to her, at the end of the day, Dr. Doom assumed that Victorious wouldn't really care, that she would just see this woman as Symkarian scum, as a rebel, right? A person who tried to orchestrate a revolt. Instead, while it doesn't necessarily lead Victorious to turning against Dr. Doom entirely, it does permanently fracture the relationship between the two of them. She doesn't trust him as much anymore, and she doesn't look at him the same way anymore. Following that, every single person who was in some capacity associated with the coup d'etat in Latveria from Symkaria, whether they're in Latveria as collaborators and orchestrators, or whether they're from Symkaria or not, it doesn't matter. They're all summarily executed by firing squad. So literally, like, Dr. Doom takes no prisoners. And the funny thing about this, as this kind of final act, is what he does is he muses to himself, and he says, despite all this violence and all these things that he's done, at the end of the day, he has no intention of staying this way. That what he's going to do is he's going to travel to the moon, he's going to find a solution to fix this whole Antlion Collider problem, and then he's going to become the version of himself that he saw in his visions. The version of himself that, by all standards of measurement, is much better and far more peaceful than he is right now, and has led the world into a place where it becomes more advanced, right? Basically ushering in a new era. But notice this, Dr. Doom's not doing it because it's the right thing to do. None of it comes from an altruistic motive. He's doing it because he sees it as his best possible chance to rule the world.
Oh my
and so
God.
following this, once he completes all of his research and everything and literally develops a plan, that what he says is he's kind of devised a whole like laser and experiment and so on, which is way beyond my ability to comprehend. But basically it keeps getting fired into the black hole, which will help to reduce the black hole in size. The problem with this is that Dr. Doom's ego becomes his own problem. That what happens here is that as he talks to Reed Richards, who literally just wants to wish him good luck, Dr. Doom's own ego and really his own self-consciousness starts to become an issue when he starts to believe that Reed has an ulterior motive. That Reed's just like, yeah, good luck, Dr. Doom. You're gonna need it, man, because maybe Reed Richards has realized something about Dr. Doom's experiment that Dr. Doom didn't realize himself. But because of how much he hates Reed, and because of all the insecurity that he has in his comparison to Reed, that he actually starts recalculating all of his experiments. He basically starts to second guess himself. And when that happens, he makes a fatal error. Because when he does, the machine fires off, it hits the moon, and it blows part of the moon in half. And then following that, Dr. Doom disappears. And so when that happens, he basically wakes up in this alternate reality, in this alternate universe, where he's met by his alternate self. And this is where things get really, really cool. Because as he meets this alternate reality version of himself, he doesn't really attack him, right? Instead, he's just like, I want to learn. I want to know how it was you successfully managed to conquer the world. Now notice, the conversation between these two is starkly different. Because this good version of Doom, right, we'll call him Victor, right? Victor does not use phrases like, here's how I conquer the world, here's how I subjugated humanity, different things like that. It's we and us. It's a collaborative effort from his perspective. Whereas Dr. Doom is seeing it as, you did something that allowed you to seize control of the entire world. And it's one of those cool things because Adam Brashear survived everything that had gone on. And in fact, he ended up in this alternate reality as well. And what really Adam Brashear says is that the visions that Dr. Doom has been having of Victor's life, where he's got a wife and kids and the world adores him and loves him, that the reality is it's a mirror. That what Victor's been receiving is really the life of Dr. Doom. And so it's one of those things where Victor looks at Dr. Doom and his actions in the main Marvel universe and being a kind of warlord and all that kind of stuff as a nightmare. But he sees it as like the worst possible version of himself that he could potentially be. Whereas Dr. Doom looks at Victor and sees Victor as what could be the best version of himself. But again, the motivations are different. Victor is afraid of the life that he would have as Dr. Doom because he becomes a warlord. Dr. Doom loves the life that Victor has because it allows him to achieve his ultimate goal as a warlord. So again, totally different motivations, totally different perspectives, but at the end of the day, they are in some capacity mirrors of each other. And that's what's so cool here, because as they begin to talk, this Victor personality kind of starts to rub off on Dr. Doom to a degree, right? Where Dr. Doom is perceiving all of this as Victor just because he's so much smarter than everybody. And like, that's it. But one of the things Victor says is, you're wrong about that. And I want to hear you say that you're wrong. I want to hear you tell me that you were wrong. And the response of Doom is, I was wrong, right? And it's really hard for him to say because he's got to swallow his pride to do it. But then they get to the home of Victor, which is a really nice and beautiful home, but it's not the castle of Doomstat in Latveria. And Dr. Doom asks Victor, like, why would you give up our birthright? Why would you give up this castle to live in this kind of, this hovel, as he calls it, right? Like this small home that just does not really stand as a testament to the greatness of who we are. And the response of Victor is, because none of this is about how great I am. None of this is about how awesome and intelligent I, as Victor Von Doom, am. That's not what this is supposed to be. This was all done for the legitimate betterment of humanity, to make the world a better place for people. More so than that, what he also says is, you are looking at this and you're really looking at the world from your own limited perspective. You look at it in terms of what you can make the world into being. I look at the world from the perspective of, what can I and the rest of humanity turn the world into? What can we make the world? Because it's one of those things where he says the result is that regardless of how you perceive humanity, whether you're exceedingly misanthropic and make this argument that the human race is the worst thing to happen to Earth, or you're more optimistic where you say the potential of humanity far outweighs the terrible things that we've done, the reality is that the human race is greater than the sum of its parts. As a singular entity with a singular ideology and a motive, the human race cannot be stopped from achieving anything. But instead, it's literally barriers between countries and its motivations from world leaders, right, and different things like that. It's the limited perception of the world by humanity that makes humanity so limited. And so when he's like, once you start breaking that down, the possibilities are endless. And what he reveals is it's like, this isn't just Earth where this happens. Every single race across the universe, we all collaborate now. The Shi'ar, the Kree, the Skrull, the Badoon, the whole 9 yards, we share information, we share technology, that we protect those civilizations as much as they protect us. And while our technology was vastly more limited than theirs, because humanity as a whole had not achieved interstellar travel, there was a level of power regarding various superheroes that exist on Earth that those other civilizations didn't have. So we let them have some stuff, they let us have some stuff, and the universe is better off for it. And that's what's so fascinating here, because even Victor says, like, all these grand weapons that exist out there and these grand powers, the Infinity Stones, the Cosmic Cube, the Crimson Gem of Sidorak, you know, the Casket of Ancient Winters, the Darkhold, there's no need for those things anymore. There's no need for these crazy, you know, artifacts of power, because nobody really views the world in such a limited capacity in that way anymore. We don't need it. We do what's right because it's best for humanity. And so as this whole conversation takes place, that what Victor tells Dr. Doom is, you can achieve this. You can do this on your own home world. You can literally bring this world, or really bring what I've done, to your own world, but you're going to have to drop this facade. You're going to have to drop this armor that you have. You're going to have to learn to forgive guys like Richards, and you're going to have to heal your face. And he says the reason why you have to heal your face is because you know just as well as I do, at any point in time, you could heal your face. You could restore your face back to a sense of normalcy, but you choose not to, because having a scarred face allows you to remember how humanity has wronged you. That instead of becoming one with humanity and leading humanity, you want to subjugate the human race because you see yourself as better than them. You are the very definition of a misanthropic narcissist, right? Like, you believe people don't matter and they should be subjected or subjugated because you're somehow more capable than they are. And he says, think about it for a moment, Victor. It's all a farce, a desperate and honestly pathetic attempt to conceal your endless fear. It currently permeates every fiber of your existence, all the way down to the silly finger guns in your metal gauntlet hand. It's all ludicrous. Your entire mode of being is ludicrous. You know that I'm right. And when he says that, it's the final straw. Dr. Doom kills Victor on the spot. Then he seizes control of the ultimate nullifier in this alternate reality and wipes out the whole universe. Literally kills the whole universe on the spot. He ends up having, you know, taking Adam Bashir out, and Adam Bashir arrives back on Earth. But Dr. Doom is just like, no, I will not have it said that I, Dr. Doom, Victor Von Doom, the smartest being in existence, has somehow joined the limited intellectual minds of humanity, and I've somehow become a part of them. I don't want to be infected by the human race. I don't want to be that kind of a person. If the human race will become better, it's because I will make them better. I will lead them into becoming better because I will subjugate them and turn them into something better. But if humanity could be better, it would have already been better by now. Humanity doesn't want to be better because people are stupid, but I will make them better. And so it's like the most misanthropic thing ever, right? But literally wipes out a whole universe on the spot, kills that entire universe, and then just goes back to his castle, and it's just like, nope, I'm him. Like, I'm Dr. Doom. There's not 1 ounce of good in me, and there never ever will be. And that's when Kang reappears to Victor Von Doom, and it's just like, so I see that you're back on your throne. And the response of Victor is, yes, I will not become that guy. He is a weak, mewling, pathetic version of me, and that's never going to be what's going to happen to Dr. Doom. If I conquer this world, it'll be with an iron fist. And all Kang the Conqueror does is just look on and basically smile. Because at the end of the day, I don't know if it was the manipulation of Kang that led to this, but seemingly Kang always knew how this was going to turn out. It was simply just up to Dr. Doom to figure it out on his own. But with that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. Amazing story. I loved it. Thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you all later. Peace. Okay, so I just got out of seeing Fantastic Four, and right off the bat, there's one thing that I want to clarify here getting into this. This is the Fantastic Four. This is Marvel Studios making a Fantastic Four movie. This is not Ironheart, right? This is not Agatha All Along. It's not WandaVision or even Loki, right? This is Marvel making the Fantastic Four. So there's no curve on this grade, right? Like, I'm pulling no punches, right? I am granting no grace. All the things that I loved, we're going to celebrate.
And all the things that I didn't, we're going to call them out. So first things first, let's talk about Galactus. Now, I do love that Galactus looked comic book accurate. He looked fantastic. And literally in the scene where you see him for the first time, right, like the moment that happened, the first thing I said was, Jesus Christ. And like I shouted it out in the theaters, like people started laughing. I didn't mean to. It just kind of came out that way. He looked incredible and he looked imposing. Having said that, that's where the imposition stopped, because there was nothing about Galactus that seemed to be this just omnipresent, right, just insanely powerful, godlike being within the Fantastic Four film. I mean, his World Devourer ship, I mean, that's fine, whatever, right? It looked like a giant, you know, DeWalt drill that was like drilling through a world. I don't really care about that. What really bothered me about Galactus was just the lack of power it seemed like he had. Right? I mean, in reality, when you look at the movie, he doesn't actually do anything, right? Like, I mean, here's Galactus summed up in the Fantastic Four, right? He meets the Fantastic Four, they say, hey man, will you spare our world? And Galactus says, I will if you give me your child, and they say no. Then they escape. And then Galactus basically comes to Earth once they effectively lead him there. He's already on his way there anyway, traveling through that slow-ass world ship that he uses, but he's on his way there. And then in turn, once he arrives, he just walks around, battles the Fantastic Four a little bit, and then realizes they tried to trick him with Franklin, and ultimately he gets pushed through a portal by Susan Storm at the end, and like that's the end of Galactus. And there's that scene, I guess, where he takes Shalabal and kind of like shows us that he's more powerful than she is, right? But like, there's nothing about him that's just like Galactus from Marvel Comics, this godly, powerful being that at any point could just end the Fantastic Four without a thought. Having said that, I understand why they didn't do that, because you cannot make any movie that features Galactus and has him being that powerful in the movie. It just won't work, right? And here's exactly the reason why. So if in Marvel Comics, Galactus just woke up one day and was like, Franklin Richards is the key to me not having to suffer with hunger anymore. So if I take Franklin Richards and turn him into my heir, then everything's gonna be okay. Cool, right? And let's say it's the old Jack Kirby, you know, Stanley Jack Kirby, or even the John Byrne era, when, you know, Franklin Richards is like a toddler, essentially, a baby or a toddler. Then like the family would be gathered around the table, right, eating whatever it is they're eating for dinner, and they're celebrating and they're laughing, and then Franklin just vanishes one day, right? And then like that's it. That's literally what would have happened in the movie, right? They would have just kind of been sitting there celebrating the birth of Franklin, and everybody's having a good time, and the kid just disappears, right? And then the scene turns into that scene from The Godfather, right? When the guy's like screaming when the horse's head in his bed, you know, ah, 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 like that, but it's Susan Storm because her child just disappeared, and then the credits roll, and like that's the end of the movie, right? You can't tell that movie. You can't make a movie with Galactus being that powerful, because in Marvel Comics, he is that powerful. In Marvel Comics, this guy can resurrect the dead. He can create life. He can destroy life. I mean, he could create whole planets. Like, literally, the first world that he consumed, Archaeopia, there's a point when he feels so bad about doing it that he actually restores the entire planet to the way it was before he consumed it, and then actually makes it better than it was before he consumed it. It's just how powerful that guy is. To say nothing of being able to just teleport across space and time, right? Or being able to whisk anybody else across space and time. So again, Galactus just didn't really feel powerful in the movie. But again, I understand why. Having said that, Reed Richards. Okay, so here's the thing about Reed. Pedro Pascal, he's kind of a quirky Reed Richards. He's not good, he's not bad. I do think he was a better Reed than John Krasinski was, but we didn't really get to see John Krasinski for very long. Having said that, I think Pedro Pascal's Reed suffered from the same issue that John Krasinski's Reed suffered from in Doctor Strange 2 Multiverse of Madness, which is the issue of Marvel movies and how they're written. Because John Krasinski is a wildly talented actor, and when you have this instance where it's like Black Bolt can end you with a single word from his mouth or whatever it was that he said, and just told Wanda how to defeat him, right? That's Marvel writing 101, right? Marvel Studios does that kind of stuff all the time. With Reed Richards, right? So they come up with this plan when they're like, we need to lead Galactus to Earth, right? We gotta bring Galactus to Earth. They come up with this plan where it's like, okay, so we're gonna put Franklin down here in the center of the city, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna like kind of blind, so to speak, or at least momentarily distract Galactus long enough to switch out the baby with a fake. And then we're gonna take the real Franklin back to the Baxter building. Okay, cool. But that's like a terrible idea, right? Because Reed Richards is apparently smart enough to be able to build an entire global positioning teleportation system to move Earth potentially millions of light years away from where it is right now. But it's somehow not smart enough to be able to build a baby holder that can just mask the signature of his child from a guy who clearly is not any kind of a demigod, more just technologically powerful, right? That's really it. So it's kind of like, okay, right, now that I can get past, it's not a great big huge deal, and by no means a slight against the character. Having said that, the reason why I loved Pedro Pascal's Reed so much is because he nailed the social awkwardness. The idea that Reed Richards is on one hand a family man, but on the other is so often so far removed from humanity, despite being a superhero, that it's almost impossible for him to figure out where the line between superhero antics ends and being a family man begins. He doesn't necessarily know how to always be the best husband and father. Now, a lot of that was explored in Jonathan Hickman's fantastic run on the Fantastic Four, where he basically explains a lot of this is due to the fact that Reed's father abandoned him when he was younger. Now, there's a whole motivation behind why that was done, but basically he didn't really have a father figure growing up. So he didn't really have any kind of a role model on what it meant to be a father. And that kind of issue carried over and almost became a major issue between himself and his son. It's the reason why at the end of Hickman's run, when he teaches Franklin how to fly, how to start using his powers, instead of putting mental blocks in place, ignoring them, shutting them down, why it's so incredibly significant. But again, I love that he nailed the social awkwardness. Vanessa Kirby was a fantastic Susan Storm. Holy hell, she nailed it. I don't agree with any of the interviews where she said that a baby was used 100% of the time with Franklin Richards. Not a chance. Like, there were definitely instances where it was clearly CGI in that particular scene with Franklin, but she was a phenomenal Susan Storm. I love the way they depicted her as Susan Storm. It's very John Byrne, very Dan Slott, very Ryan North. It is so cool the way that her character is done. It was very, very classic Susan Storm in terms of being like a kind of hallmark, I guess maybe the core member of the team, the emotional side of the team. I love that they weren't really beating us over the head with Ben Grimm, because that kind of happens in Marvel Comics sometimes, right? Ben Grimm is an important part of the Fantastic Four because at the end of the day, he shows us what it all costs. Right, that like them getting their powers and all that kind of stuff, that on one hand it's very easy to look at and say like, yes, they're superheroes, right? But what was the actual cost on going on that mission? Well, Ben Grimm is a constant reminder of that, right? So I love that we kind of got that to a degree, and sort of a kind of undercurrent outside of that little bit of a conversation that Reed and Ben had, where Reed kind of blames himself for Ben becoming the Thing. It's a very important aspect of the relationship between Reed and Ben in Marvel Comics, so I'm glad they kept it there. Johnny Storm was fantastic. Yeah, he was great. I can't remember the actor's name. If you ever happen to see this dude, I'm sorry, but I love the way he played Johnny Storm. He was very devil-may-care, and truth to tell, he felt a lot like Jonathan Hickman's Johnny Storm, right? The guy who's kind of reckless, but also is the guy you want in your corner when you actually need someone in your corner with an incredible level of power and has it where it counts. So I love that about Johnny Storm. Yeah, I mean, overall it was cool. Mole Man was dope. You know, that was really fun. Again, one of the cool things that I loved here, this is the thing that I think was really the biggest takeaway, and the thing that I loved the most about the Fantastic Four film was the feeling. Marvel Studios needed this film, despite all the shortcomings that it had, the issues with writing, specifically when it came to the relationship between Reed and Susan, and kind of like the arguments, which I'll talk about here in a second. They needed this, right? Because this movie, it felt like a combination of Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, John Byrne, really kind of their runs combined into one singular story. It felt like very much like the old school.
This is insane. Like, I'm actually, like, need to fight these guys for my quest. This never happens. Whenever I need to fight somebody, this happens, apparently. Like, I'm invisible now. But when I don't, I'm trying to cross away from a fight, and I get dragged in every time. It's absolutely insane.
Well, Fantastic Four in Marvel Comics. But the other reason why I say that Marvel Studios needed this is because it feels like a throwback to the old, what is it, Ewan Gruffald, I can't remember his name, but like the old Fantastic Four films from like the early 2000s. It felt like that, right? Back when when the movies kind of felt a little cornballish, there were a few corny moments here and there, but damn it if they were not fun to watch. And Marvel needed this, right? They needed to have a project that was thrown out here to the world that's not some grandiose, explanation or exposition on the importance of what it means to understand family and, yada, 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 so on and so forth, right? They're not beating us over the head with a political message. But what they are giving us is some measure of why family is important, but just good old-fashioned superhero movie storytelling. And I think that in that feeling, they killed it with this movie. They nailed it with this movie. It felt like what a Fantastic Four movie should be. That being said, it really was just Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer reworked. And it was Marvel Studios' love letter to Fantastic Four fans, and also kind of an apology.
Yeah.
For what Rise of the Silver Surfer became, as opposed to what it could have been. So I do love, right? I love the overall feeling of the movie. That being said, there were a lot of times when I kind of felt like the situation between Reed and Susan was a little wonky. One scene in particular stands out to me, and that is the scene where they're talking about the plan, right? Which is to say that Reed had been kicking around the idea, and really Susan knew her husband well enough to know that when they were talking about creating a distraction for Galactus, it was using Franklin as a distraction. Now, Susan Storm is none too happy about this, right? And it's not one of these things where she's just kind of like, God, I don't know about that, Reed. It seems a little dangerous. No, she was pissed. Like, literally, there's a point before that scene when she's standing out there in front of the world and really the people who are around the Baxter building and says, look, guys, we're all a family, right? Now, technically speaking, you guys as people are our family insofar as you're like 36 cousins, 18 times removed, but your family nonetheless. But have no mistake, right? If it comes down to choosing between my son and this world, well, we got a ship that says 4 on it. It doesn't say 7 billion, it says 4, right? I mean, I don't, if you see a ship that says 7 billion, that's great. But I see a ship that says 4, because that ship's for us, because we are going out into space. Deuces, right? I love that whole speech. I thought it was hilarious, right? Where she's like, we'll fight for you as best we can, but yeah, I'll save my kid before I save all of you. And that's when Susan realizes that in order to create a distraction for Galactus, they have to use Franklin. And so at that moment, she sees it on Reed's face that Reed knows that's what they have to do, but it's not what she wants to do. And she's pissed off and she's angry about that, to the point where, like, even when her and Reed are arguing, like, Reed tells her, look, I get this is just a part of who I am, and I'm sorry. And she literally tells him, sometimes you being you hurts me, right? So literally, like, she's angry at her husband. And then, like, that, they're standing on the street corner. I remember back when this place was so beautiful. I used to talk about how beautiful, it's like a news anchor segment, right? Where they're giving you some tragic set of events. Some family dies in a fire, or they die from carbon monoxide poisoning, and then, like, the happy music comes on, letting you know that we're done with the tragedy, and now we're going to talk about sports or the weather. It felt like that, right? It was just, now suddenly everything's okay, and they get past it. I feel like oftentimes they just kind of got past arguments and issues in a very, very cliched and non-realistic way. It was like watching an Aaron Sorkin show, right? Where people just don't talk that way in real life. The Newsroom, The West Wing, those are Aaron Sorkin projects. The reality here, and one of the things that made the Fantastic Four story so great, when you looked at Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, John Byrne, Roy Thomas, Jerry Conway, any number of these guys, right? These guys who wrote the Fantastic Four between the 60s going up into the 80s, and even, writers that came after. Ralph Macchio, for example, had a pretty solid run of the Fantastic Four for like 3 or 4 issues or something like that. But the point is, the Fantastic Four didn't just and it's not Ralph Macchio from Karate Kid, by the way, but they didn't just get past these issues like that. It didn't happen just that quickly. Sometimes these arguments and issues they would have would stretch on for a long time. In fact, the entire concept of Malice as a character was all these feelings of feeling disregarded and feeling ignored, feeling like she was being walked over or shuffled into the background, that all kind of came to a head. To the point where, like, Susan Storm is freaking out, beating on the chest of Reed, and she's like, I hate you, right? Now, technically she didn't, her mind was being screwed with, but the fact is, those were real feelings that she had really felt over a period of time in Marvel, and they were just now coming out as the character of Malice. And the reality here is that in real life, right, like, couples do not get over issues. Like, they don't have these great big huge long drawn out fights, especially about something regarding their children, and they're over that fight by like mid-afternoon. No. Sometimes, like, literally, there have been times where myself and Mariah have been pissed off at each other for days on end. Because that's what it means to be in a relationship, right? Like, you don't just get over these things incredibly quickly. And so I think that in a lot of ways, Marvel tried to take the family element of the Fantastic Four, what made the
I don't
Fantastic
agree with
Four
what he's
work,
saying here.
and then tried to combine it with kind of like these stereotypical, family arguments, insofar as whatever the plot demanded, and then getting over them just as fast. It just didn't feel
No,
real.
they don't have to be
It didn't
over them.
feel
They
like
just
what I
had
would
to.
expect
There's nothing else
from
to
the
do.
Fantastic Four. It's what made them famous, right? It's what made them so popular. Prior to the Fantastic Four, right? Bruce Wayne, Barry Allen, Clark Kent, these human identities of DC characters only mattered insofar as whatever it was that they happened to be doing that would lead to them becoming superheroes or putting on, their superhero outfits and doing superhero things. Clark Kent sitting at his desk at the Daily Planet or the Daily Star if you want to go back far enough. And it's like, this story's come across my desk about some dickheads who robbed an old lady. Well, this sounds like a job for Superman, right? That's where the Fantastic Four were different. They were not superheroes first and people second. They were people first and superheroes second. So much so that, like, they changed the game of comic books. After the Fantastic Four, individual identities on personal levels became the modus operandi of creating and writing stories across the entirety of the comic book medium. Literally, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby ushered in a paradigm shift, forever changing how characters and teams would be written in the realm of comic books. And I feel like some of that was lacking in the Fantastic Four. But, again, all in all, as far as the overall experience of watching the movie, is it the best Marvel movie ever made? No, not at all. Is it the worst? Not by a mile. It's a fun movie. It was a good movie. I think it was a great Marvel dipping their toe into the Fantastic Four waters. It gives me a lot of hope on where things are going to go from here with the Fantastic Four, what the future appearances of the team are going to look like. And we know from Thunderbolts, things like that, they're going to show up. Galactus is obviously going to come back.
Yeah, I think it's a little off on that.
On October 4th, 2012, the official Clash of Clans Facebook page congratulated a player named the True King for being the first player to reach 3,000 trophies. This was at a time when the community was beginning to grow rapidly, so he became well known for
Oh wait, a
his
minion
achievement,
is blocked.
and soon after, the race to 4,000 began. But it wouldn't be long before someone made it there, as in January 28th, 2013, Jorge Yao was congratulated for reaching 4,000 trophies, and in the process becoming a bit of a virtual celebrity in the Clash community. However, people were quick to question the legitimacy of this milestone, especially how he had maintained his #1 position for months, something that was previously unheard of. What exactly was Jorge Yao doing that everyone else wasn't? Today, we're going to be diving into the history of cheating in Clash of Clans. This includes the story of the leaderboards, including Jorge Yao's methods, the rise and fall of mods, and exploits that were used throughout Clash's history. The very first form of cheating was to simply never stop playing. If your village is currently online, you can't get attacked, and back in the day, there was no such thing as a personal break. Theoretically, you could stay online forever. It's unknown how many players in the leaderboards actually used this method at the time, but we do know that it was pretty dang popular. Jorge Yao was interviewed by the New York Times in December 2013 after he retired from Clash, and he explained that in order to keep your trophy count high, a player has to avoid getting attacked by other top contenders by either staying online or being attacked for a shield. He then revealed that in the weekends he would never go offline. His device was with him the entire day, either to keep it awake or clouding looking for any base to attack. Obviously, Jorge wasn't the only one doing this. Players had come up with many unique ways to keep their device awake without having to be there, like putting fruits on their device because it would trick the screen into thinking there was something touching it, building robots that tap the screen with a stylus, and even jailbreaking their devices to download softwares that could do it for them. More on that later. If you were one of the players that constantly logged off and getting attacked and losing trophies, playing Clash as it was meant to be, you would have unfortunately never got anywhere near players that were always online. In May 2013, a personal break feature was implemented to enforce players to go offline for a short period of time. However, this could easily be bypassed with mods at the time, and it wouldn't be until early 2014 where this feature actually worked as intended. But this wasn't the only method being used to cheat back then. By late 2012, players were already perfecting the act of win trading. If you're unfamiliar with the term win trading, specifically in gaming, it's basically where one player agrees to lose in a ranked match to boost another player. Jorge Yao, as well as other top players at the time, used a form of win trading where they would leave their clan before going offline. In doing so, the chances of one of their clanmates finding them in matchmaking was very high, especially at such high trophies. They would come to an agreement that if they found one another in matchmaking, they would only destroy the bare minimum of the base to obtain a 12-hour shield. Back then, this would have been at 40% destruction with or without a star. Depending on the agreement they had, they would have either got 40% and failed the attack, giving free trophies to the defender, or got a 40% 1-star and surrender right before the 2-star. That way they take less trophies from their clanmates. Whatever method they chose to use would have gave them a 12-hour shield and helped both of them stay at the top of the leaderboards. But sometimes hoping a clanmate finds your base in matchmaking wasn't enough, and it didn't always work either. So to keep reaching new milestones, players like Jorge Yao discovered a new way of win trading: attacking yourself. Players in the leaderboard only got offline for one reason: to tend to their life. You can't be on the damn game 24/7. I guess you could, but the reality was people had lives. That's when Jorge realized that if he took over someone else's account during the time that they would have normally had a shield, he could use that account to win trade by himself. One thing led to another, and eventually he was managing multiple leaderboard accounts in order to help his main account reach new heights. Playing as much as 5 iPads at once and even taking them to the shower covered in plastic bags. Many players would eventually use these same methods even years later after the shield changes. However, win trading would eventually change as a whole after the Legends League rework in 2019. But before we skip all the way to 2019, I wanted to move away from win trading for a bit and take a look at other forms of cheating in Clash of Clans in those early days. If you were playing between 2013 and 2016, you're most likely familiar with Clash of Clans mods that required you to jailbreak or root your device. The two big players in the scene were iMod and XMod. I'm only going to be talking about these two because, for one, they're the most popular and well-known, and two, it seems they're no longer around, and I much rather talk about something that happened in the past rather than accidentally promote something that's still available. iMod and XMod were basically tools that assisted you in Clash of Clans. You couldn't spawn 1,000 dragons on someone's base or get unlimited gems. It wasn't that kind of mod. But think of it as having extra settings that you definitely weren't supposed to have. For example, you could copy a base layout before that was an official feature, or, as we mentioned earlier, a toggle to keep your base active. However, the capabilities of these mods were way beyond that, and over time they just kept getting better. Firstly, it was a major help for farming because you could set loot parameters. So let's say you set it to 200k gold or elixir. The mod would search and skip for you until it found a base with 200k gold, elixir, or both. It could do this for dark elixir, town halls, levels, pretty much everything. The second main reason these mods were used was because of their sandboxing feature. A feature that let you visit any base and practice attacking it, even having a toggle that allowed you to see the traps. This became a massive problem in both the leaderboard and clan wars because all of a sudden, players using this mod could practice their attacks before actually doing it. This led to many clan wars where everyone was getting perfect 3 stars, and over in the leaderboards, because you usually run into the same bases up there, top players were practicing on each other's bases so they can do good next time they find them. It basically eliminated the need to strategize your attacks. These mods were highly controversial because a lot of players using these mods argued that it wasn't cheating and that it simply helped them enjoy the game in between their busy lives. But at the end of the day, mods are mods, and anything that gave anyone an advantage is cheating. In April 2016, Supercell finally did something about it and committed to keeping Clash of Clans a level playing field for everyone. they started to issue 2-week bans to anyone who was caught utilizing any third-party app. But after multiple ban waves throughout 2016, it seems many players still weren't getting the message. And so they started to issue permanent bans to everyone in the fall of 2016. There were attempts from Xmod and iMod to dodge these detection methods Supercell had put in place. However, the more discreet these mods became, the more effort Supercell put into putting an end to it. There was a bit of a resurgence in 2017, specifically in Clan War leagues, but by then Supercell was not messing around. After a few ban waves, thousands of accounts were banned, and this kind of scared people away from doing so. Eventually, players realized that there was no way of guaranteeing that you wouldn't be banned. In the end, these mods began to slowly disappear. Today, it seems they're non-existent, and if you find an alternative, there's a very good chance you'll be banned sooner or later, so yeah, I don't recommend it. As mentioned a minute ago, mods were used to practice war attacks, and this made Clan Wars feel less about strategy and more about who had mods installed. But there was also a way of doing this without the mods. Ghosting, a way of attacking a base and tricking the game into thinking that you actually weren't attacking it, so it wouldn't count the attack. The exact method was simple and easy to do. You would hit attack on any base, and during the 30-second window the game gave you to spectate, you would set your device to airplane mode. And then you could do anything you wanted. Check the location of traps, see what's in the clan castle, practice your attack. None of it counted because the game just assumed you weren't there. To anyone who was viewing the war screen, it would sort of just look like an attack was going on, but then suddenly stopped after 3 minutes. All of this was possible because between April 2014 and April 2015, you could back out of any attack as long as you didn't drop a troop, much like you can do in regular multiplayer. On April 30th, 2015, you could no longer do this. Backing out would now count as a surrender, so there were a lot of screenshots floating around of people getting 0%. Kind of funny, not gonna lie. This wasn't the end of cheating in wars, as mods were still around in 2015, but it was at least a step in the right direction. However, the topic of ghosting would appear again all the way in 2019. Apparently, leaderboard players had figured out another method of doing so, but it was never revealed how exactly, and I couldn't find any information about it either. It was quickly patched and multiple accounts were banned, and that's all we know. If you had a lot of trophies in the year 2014, you might have come across an exploit that was plaguing the leaderboards. A lot of players were reporting that they would get a client and server out of sync error after only dropping one troop on certain bases. This would cause an automatic 0%, 0 stars, and players affected lost their hard-earned trophies in the process. One of those players who encountered this error was me. I happened to be pushing at the time as well, and for the 2 people who are curious, I believe I peaked at number 6 in the US, but I only have this picture. Anyways, sorry, getting a bit off topic. I vividly remember losing tons of trophies because of this error message. At the time, it was believed it was either a server bug or that those players were using Xmod. However, it turns out it was neither of those. Instead, it seems some players figured out a way to bug their base, and so when someone attacked them, the game would realize that something was wrong with their base. A Reddit post from mid-2014 has some proof of this. Here's a base that someone found that was missing a wizard tower, and as soon as they dropped troops, the error message appeared. But upon visiting their base later that day, the wizard tower was back in its place. No one knows how they were managing to unplace defenses and bug their base, and unfortunately we never got the answer to that. The bug was eventually fixed and it was all forgotten about. The players who had abused this exploit and gained tons of trophies from defenses just moved along like nothing ever happened. Meanwhile, tons of players who were affected by this exploit ended up quitting their journey to be the next #1 player. Earlier we discussed the topic of old school win trading, but ever since the Legends League rework, this method of cheating has evolved, because in Legends League you cannot lose trophies from attacking, so how would you give trophies to someone else? Well, the main method of win trading was to make an agreement with your friends to never get more than 1 star when they run into each other. That way those involved lost minimal trophies from defense, but won a lot on offense. This basically allowed those players to gain trophies faster than anybody else doing it legitimately. In 2019, a couple by the name Stephanie and Dr. Mushtaba broke 2 trophy records within the span of 4 months by using this method of win trading. But not only that, they had figured out how to do ghost attacks and a couple of other things. Man, they really wanted that #1 spot bad. As mentioned earlier, we don't know how exactly they did the whole ghosting thing, but we do know that the couple was paying their way to the leaderboards. Literally. Apparently, they would pay random ass players in the leaderboards $1,500 to change their name to something stupid like Stephanie Hart Mushtaba, or some silly variation of the same name. In doing so, this confused Supercell in determining who to ban for all this win trading that was going on. But it also allowed their name to be plastered all throughout the leaderboards. Eventually, Supercell started to hand out bans for win trading and the ghosting exploit. However, they still had dozens of accounts in the leaderboards throughout 2020 and I believe 2021 because they could simply make new accounts, buy some, or pay someone to change their name. Fast forward to today, their names are a thing of the past, but it's believed that win trading is still a widespread issue in the leaderboards, clan wars, and even the clan capital. Who the hell would want to do that? The developers have gotten better in determining who is doing it, but it's hard to know for sure sometimes. And it's just something that happens in games. The fact is, wherever there is competition, there will always be cheating. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I had tons of fun researching and writing this one. I even learned a couple things myself here and there. I'm sure there have probably been a few more niche ways of cheating in Clash, but there are currently 17 town halls in Clash of Clans. Some are more fun than others, but one thing's for sure, eventually you'll play through all of them. Today we're looking at the worst and best things about every town hall in Clash of Clans, because as much as you'll hate some of their qualities and annoying quirks, there's always going to be the highlight of that town hall. Something you'll always remember it for, and maybe even
What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and as promised, it is Sunday, so we are starting Secret Invasion. Now, the last time we did this, we did it all as one video, which was about 20 minutes long. We're actually going to do this more in depth, and we're just going to kind of break it down piece by piece over multiple videos. So, in this video, we're basically going to discuss how it was that Secret Invasion happened in the first place. So, this may be familiar territory to a lot of you guys out there who are familiar with my channel, but what this does is this initially picks up on Tarnax 4, which is basically the home world or the throne world of the Skrulls. Now, one of the things that I want to establish right off the bat,
So, I may have made a mistake. Come back in this story hours later. Wizard 101 takes place in the Spiral. The Spiral is a collection of anywhere from a few dozen to a few hundred floating islands that coexist on this plane, and to my knowledge have been around for roughly 1,000 years. It's set up in such a way that it's basically a giant planet, because at one point it was. Like every world here has a corresponding Earth equivalent. For example, one of the locations, Krakatopia, is meant to be an equivalent to Egypt, both in how it looks and its history. And the Spiral wasn't always just a bunch of floating islands. Before the Spiral formed together, there was a single world that we're calling the First World, and it had at least 6 crucial and unbelievably powerful individuals. The first 2 are Grandmother Raven and Grandfather Spider. The 2 of them would fall in love, and then also another powerful figure, Bartleby the Grandfather Tree, hung out and used his magic eyes. He can see into the past with his left eye and into the future with his right, trying to write down all of history in his head. So in other words, in canon, all of history is preserved from an old guy making mental notes. That's gonna go wrong. Raven and Spider would then create 3 powerful children, the Titans. There's a dragon one, an ice one, and a storm one. And one day, bad shit just starts happening. The Titans start fighting each other over, like, the last Great Value Oreo in the package, and in the other room, Raven and Spider are filing for divorce. But then outside, Uncle Bartleby's, like, bird watching or something. The divorce is a brutal one, but in the end, Raven gets full custody, and this absolutely destroys Grandfather Spider. He loved Grandmother Raven with all his heart, and losing this relationship quite literally rips his heart out of him, concluding with Raven banishing Grandfather Spider into a void somewhere across the First World, where he's gonna spend a majority of all time in a deep sleep, waiting to come back and destroy anything he can. The Titan children don't take this news too well, and this escalates to the Great Titan War. They start fighting and eventually get so bad all of the first worlds are at risk of being destroyed and lost forever. So Grandmother Raven does a few things in response. First, she works with Bartleby to sing the best lullaby of all time and force all the children to be really sleepy forever and want to do nothing but sleep because all they do when awake is destroy stuff. We can't have that. And as a result of the Titans and their constant battling, the first world becomes nothing but fragments, and wanting to save the people of First World, if possible, Grandmother Raven and Bartleby sing the Song of Creation. And as such, it weaves all the fragments of the First World into what becomes the Spiral. So even though all of them are separated, in their own way, they're still technically connected. Treat it like a super Pangea, but all the continents are separated by space rather than by water. This means you gotta fly to them or use magical doors to travel through each piece of this former planet, meaning that each fragment will develop its own world with its own history and cultures and everything a small planet would, with the main sources of powers being glowing red health orbs and glowing blue mana orbs that the Spiral produces and helps keep each separate area alive. The last thing Raven does to assure the Spiral can exist is she takes Grandfather Spider's missing heart and makes it the heart of the Spiral, so his power is still part of everything and nothing bad will happen. Now Bartleby, being a tree and all, he didn't really have an option on where he was gonna live, so instead Raven decides to have him be somewhat near the heart of the Spiral, acting as like a center point where people would come on in and use his magical teleporting doors that are inside him for some reason. Eventually Bartleby will be found by adventurers of the Spiral, and a greater society will develop around him. As for the Titans, along with their parents Raven and Spider, well, their locations are going to be revealed in due time because there sure is a lot in this adventure, so just keep them stuck back in your cranium. We got 6 magical friends we gotta find. For the sake of not making all this too confusing, we're not gonna go chronologically through the timeline. Not only is that near impossible since there's quite literally hundreds of events to go through, but that would require a lot of jumping back and forth between each world. So we need a little more coherency. And as such, I'll go through my playthrough and cover topics when I reach them. The best way to describe this story is as one giant city of history. The entire story itself is the city, but then when you cut it down to districts, they're the same as story arcs because yes, story arcs are a thing. They should be called sagas, but arcs are fine. Then you cut those down to city blocks, which are the same as each respective world. We're gonna call them worlds even though they're more like their own world fragments, since yeah, each of them basically evolved to their own planets in terms of variety. Then within each of those blocks are numerous buildings full of respective stories and